The night Adrian Hale found a billionaire crying on his apartment floor, he understood that wealth couldn't buy the one thing they both desperately needed, someone who saw them for who they truly were, not what they provided. This is a story about doors we're afraid to open, walls we build to survive, and the unexpected person who makes us question everything we thought we knew about protection and love. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments below. I want to see how far this story travels. And if it moves you, hit that like button. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. The rejection email arrived at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Adrian Hale stared at his laptop screen in the dim glow of his daughter's nightlight, watching the words blur together as exhaustion pressed against his eyes. We regret to inform you. Current economic climate. Pursuing other candidates. The usual corporate poetry that meant the same thing it always meant. Not good enough. He closed the laptop with deliberate slowness, the kind of controlled movement that comes from years of practice at not breaking things when you want to scream. Through the thin walls of the apartment, he could hear Mrs. Chen's television, some late-night drama where people's biggest problems could be solved in 60 minutes minus commercial breaks. Adrian envied those people. The Austin rental market had become a beast he couldn't outrun. 3 years ago, this one-bedroom apartment had felt like a victory. A place to rebuild after Maya's mother left, somewhere stable to raise his daughter. Now the landlord's letter sat on the kitchen counter like a ticking clock. Rent increasing by 40%. He'd spent the last month applying for better-paying positions, sending his portfolio into the void, and watching his savings account dwindle with each rejection. The math was simple and brutal. He needed a roommate, or he needed to uproot Maya again, pull her out of the school where she'd finally made friends, away from the playground where she'd learned to pump her legs on the swings without fear. He looked at his daughter sleeping in her small bed, her dark hair spread across the pillow, one hand clutching the stuffed rabbit that had seen better days. She was 6 years old and had already learned too much about loss, about mothers who promised to visit and then didn't, about the careful way her father smiled when the bills came. Adrian had built their life on a foundation of controlled variables. He worked from home as an architectural designer, specializing in adaptive reuse, taking broken buildings and reimagining them as something functional. The irony wasn't lost on him. He was good at rebuilding structures. People were harder. After Maya's mother left, not with drama or fights, but with a quiet confession that she wasn't built for this kind of life, Adrian had made himself a promise. No complications, no vulnerabilities. Focus on work, focus on Maya, and never again mistake proximity for connection. It had been 3 years of careful distance. Professional, but not personal. Friendly, but not friends. Dating was a concept from another lifetime, something that belonged to the person he used to be before responsibility rewrote his DNA. The roommate search felt like breaking his own rules. Letting someone into their space meant letting someone see the cracks. The way he sometimes ate cereal for dinner because cooking for 1.5 felt pointless. The drawings Maya taped to the walls that tracked her processing of abandonment through crayon and marker. The exhaustion he carried like a second skeleton. But math didn't care about emotional architecture. He'd posted the listing that morning. 1 bedroom in 2-bedroom apartment. Quiet professional preferred. No smoking. References required. Within hours, his inbox had flooded. Students looking to party. Couples who'd probably be fine sharing 1 bedroom. A guy whose entire application was a shirtless photo and the words, "I'm chill." Adrian deleted them all. Then, at 9:15 p.m., a new response arrived. Simple. Direct. Hi. I'm interested in the room. I work in investment consulting, keep quiet hours, and value privacy. I can provide references and first month plus deposit. Would it be possible to view the space this week? Serena Vale. Something about the message felt different. Maybe it was the lack of emojis, or the fact that she didn't immediately ask if he was 420 friendly, or the clean professionalism that reminded him of the person he used to be before life got complicated. He wrote back before he could overthink it. Tomorrow at 6 p.m.? Her reply came in seconds. Perfect. Thank you. Adrian spent the next day in a state of controlled anxiety that Maya found hilarious. "Daddy, why are you cleaning the bathroom again?" she asked, watching him scrub grout with an intensity usually reserved for crime scene investigators. "Because we have a visitor coming, sweetheart." Is it Grandma? No, someone who might live here with us. Maya processed this with the seriousness of a federal judge. In my room? No, baby, the other bedroom, where I sleep now. I'd move to the couch. That's silly. The couch is lumpy. I'll manage. She tilted her head, and Adrian saw her mother in the gesture, that same analytical way of looking at the world that had once drawn him in. Are you nervous? A little? Don't be. You're a good daddy. Anyone would be lucky to live with us. The simple confidence in her voice cracked something in his chest. He pulled her into a hug, breathing in the smell of her strawberry shampoo and the maple syrup she'd gotten in her hair at breakfast. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just don't always listen. By 5:45 p.m., the apartment looked more organized than it had in months. Adrian had changed shirts 3 times, a fact he refused to examine too closely, and settled on a simple gray Henley that didn't look like he was trying too hard. Maya sat at the kitchen table, coloring with the intense focus she brought to everything, her tongue poking out slightly in concentration. The knock came precisely at 6. Adrian opened the door and forgot whatever greeting he'd prepared. The woman standing in the hallway didn't match any image his mind had constructed. She was maybe 30, with dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, wearing jeans and a plain white t-shirt under a canvas jacket. No jewelry except small silver earrings. No makeup that he could detect. But her eyes, dark and impossibly steady, seemed to take in everything at once without judgment. Adrian? Her voice was quieter than he expected, with a warmth that softened the formality of the moment. Yes. Serena? That's me. Thank you for making time. She stepped inside with an economy of movement, not rushing, but not hesitant either. Her gaze swept the apartment, not with the critical eye of someone judging, but with something that looked like genuine interest. This is beautiful, she said, and sounded like she meant it. Adrian tried to see the space through her eyes, the exposed brick he'd spent weeks revealing from behind drywall, the plants clustered near the window, the built-in bookshelves he'd constructed from reclaimed wood. It wasn't much, but it was honest. Thank you. I did most of the renovation myself. It shows. There's intention in every detail. Before he could respond, Maya appeared from around the corner, carrying her current masterpiece. Hi, I'm Maya. I'm 6 3/4. Are you going to live in Daddy's room? Maya? Adrian started, but Serena smiled, crouching down to Maya's eye level with practiced ease. Hi, Maya. I'm Serena. I might, if your dad thinks I'd be a good fit. That's a beautiful drawing. Are those flowers? They're actually a garden for fairies. This purple one is for the queen. She likes purple because it's fancy, but not too fancy. That makes perfect sense. Not too fancy purple is clearly the way to go. Maya studied Serena with the intensity she usually reserved for new playground equipment. Do you like macaroni and cheese? I do. The good kind or the orange powder kind? I respect both, but I prefer the good kind. Maya nodded, satisfied. You can stay. Maya, it's not quite that simple, Adrian began. Why not? She likes the right kind of mac and cheese, and she knows about fairy queens. Those are the important things. Serena laughed, a genuine sound that transformed her entire face. If only all decisions were that straightforward. Adrian showed her the space, acutely aware of how small the second bedroom looked, how the closet door stuck slightly, how the window faced an alley instead of the street. He pointed out everything wrong with it, some self-sabotaging instinct making him highlight the flaws. The radiator clanks sometimes. The water pressure in the morning isn't great. The walls are thin enough that you'll probably hear Maya when she has nightmares. Adrian, Serena's voice stopped him. I'm not looking for perfect. I'm looking for real. Something in the way she said it made him look at her more carefully. She stood in the middle of the small room, her hands in her pockets, and for a moment he saw past the calm exterior to something else, a kind of weariness that matched his own. Why this place? He asked. I looked at your email. Investment consulting usually pays well enough that you could afford somewhere newer, with your own bathroom. She met his eyes directly. Do you always question good fortune? I question things that don't add up. Fair enough. She walked to the window, looking out at the alley where evening light painted the bricks gold. I've spent the last few years in places that were impressive but never felt like home. I'm tired of impressive. I want something that feels honest. This place, she gestured at the exposed brick, the slightly crooked shelves, the warmth in the worn floorboards. It feels like someone actually lives here, like it matters. Adrian didn't know what to say to that, so he said the practical thing. Rent would be $8.50 a month. That includes utilities. I work from home most days, so we'd probably cross paths. Maya goes to school until 3, and I try to keep her on a routine. Dinner around 6:30, bedtime by 8. We're pretty quiet. That sounds good to me. I keep early hours myself, usually in bed by 10, up by 5:30. 5:30? Old habit. I like the quiet before the world wakes up. They discussed logistics, move-in dates, references, deposit. Serena pulled out her phone and transferred the first month's rent plus deposit while they stood there, the transaction appearing in Adrian's account with a soft ping that felt surreal. You don't want to think about it, he asked. I'm good at reading spaces. And people. This feels right. Maya appeared again, this time with 2 glasses of juice. I brought drinks because that's what you do when you have guests. Daddy taught me. Thank you, Maya. That's very thoughtful. Serena accepted the glass with the same seriousness Maya had offered it. They sat in the living room, Adrian and Serena on the couch, Maya on the floor with her coloring, and talked about mundane things. Favorite foods, work schedules, how the building's front door stuck in humid weather. But beneath the ordinary conversation, Adrian felt something shifting, like tectonic plates adjusting to accommodate new weight. Serena mentioned she traveled sometimes for work but kept a light schedule. She asked thoughtful questions about Maya's school, about Adrian's design work, about the neighborhood. She didn't fill silences with nervous chatter, and she didn't ask the questions people usually asked. About Maya's mother, about why Adrian was renting out his bedroom, about the slight shadow of stress that probably showed in his face. She just was. Present without being invasive. Calm without being cold. When she left, Maya waited exactly 3 seconds before pronouncing judgment. I like her. You just met her, sweetheart. So? I didn't like Mrs. Chen's nephew, and I only met him for 10 seconds. He smelled like old cheese. Maya. It's true. But Serena is nice. She looked at my drawing like it was important. Most adults just say very nice without really looking. Adrian couldn't argue with that observation. Serena moved in on a Saturday morning with remarkably little fanfare. Adrian had expected the usual chaos of moving day, rental trucks, friends helping haul boxes, the inevitable cursing when furniture wouldn't fit through doorways. Instead, Serena arrived at 8 a.m. with 2 suitcases, 3 boxes, and a calm efficiency that made the entire process feel like watching a carefully choreographed dance. Is that everything? Adrian asked, looking at the modest pile. I believe in traveling light. Most of what I own is functional, not sentimental. She assembled her furniture, a simple bed frame, a desk, a single bookshelf, with practiced hands while declining his offers to help. By noon, her room looked intentionally sparse, almost minimalist, with a few carefully chosen items that suggested depth without revealing much. A photograph of a sunset over water, a well-worn paperback of poetry, a small plant in a ceramic pot. Maya knocked on the open door. Want to see my room? I'd love to. Adrian stayed in the kitchen, unpacking groceries and trying not to eavesdrop on their conversation. He heard Maya's animated voice explaining her stuffed animal collection, the reading corner where she did homework, the growth chart marked on the wall that her father had started when she was 3. You were so tiny. Serena's voice carried warmth without condescension. Daddy says I've grown at least 12 feet since then. Sounds scientifically accurate to me. They emerged 20 minutes later, Maya holding Serena's hand with the unself-conscious trust of children who haven't learned to doubt their instincts yet. Serena knows about constellations. She can see Orion from her window. It's actually visible from most windows in the northern hemisphere this time of year, Serena said, catching Adrian's eye with a slight smile that acknowledged she was being fact-checked by a 6-year-old. Can we look tonight? Maya asked. If your dad says it's okay, and if you promise to go to bed without arguing after. Maya turned to Adrian with the expression of someone about to negotiate world peace. That's a very reasonable trade. 1 constellation, then bed. Deal. That night, after Maya's bath and the usual bedtime routine, the three of them stood on the small balcony in the cooling evening air. Serena pointed out Orion's belt, tracing the hunter across the sky with patient explanations that held Maya's attention completely. "Why is he hunting?" Maya asked. Different cultures told different stories. Some said he was hunting animals to feed people. Others said he was protecting them from danger. Which one is true? Maybe both, maybe neither. Sometimes stories matter more than facts. Adrian watched his daughter's face tilt toward the stars, her eyes reflecting the distant light, and felt something dangerous bloom in his chest. The feeling of rightness, of pieces fitting together in a way he hadn't expected and didn't trust. After Maya went to bed, he found Serena in the kitchen, washing the few dishes from their simple dinner. She moved through the space like she'd been there for years, not hours. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "Habit. I like ending the day with a clean slate." "She really took to you." Serena dried her hands on a towel, and for a moment something flickered across her face. Something that might have been loneliness or memory or both. "She's wonderful. You've done an incredible job with her." "It doesn't always feel incredible. Some days it feels like I'm barely holding things together." The word surprised him. He didn't usually admit that kind of thing, especially not to someone he barely knew. But something about the quiet kitchen, the late hour, the way Serena simply listened without rushing to fill the space with reassurance, it loosened something in him. "I think that's called being a parent," she said quietly. "The loving kind, anyway. You sound like you know something about it." "I know something about holding things together." She folded the dish towel with precise corners. "Thank you for taking a chance on me. I know letting a stranger into your home isn't easy, especially with Maya to consider." "You don't feel like a stranger." The words hung between them, too honest, too revealing. Adrian immediately regretted the vulnerability, started to backtrack. "I just mean, you fit. Here. It's comfortable." Serena's expression softened. Comfortable is underrated. People chase excitement and forget that peace is actually the harder thing to find. She said goodnight and disappeared into her room, leaving Adrian alone in the kitchen with the feeling that he'd just agreed to something much bigger than a roommate arrangement. The first week established rhythms. Serena woke at 5:30 every morning exactly as she'd said. Adrian would hear the quiet sounds of her moving through the apartment, coffee brewing, the soft click of her laptop, the occasional phone call conducted in tones too low to make out words. By the time he and Maya emerged at 7, Serena would be dressed in simple professional clothes, usually on her second cup of coffee, working at the kitchen table with a focus that seemed almost meditative. "Good morning," she'd say, the same greeting every day, warm but not intrusive. "Morning," Adrian would reply, and they'd orbit around each other in the small kitchen with surprising ease. Serena never commented on the mornings when Maya was cranky, or when Adrian burned the toast, or when he had to take a work call while simultaneously braiding his daughter's hair. She'd simply slide a cup of coffee toward him at the right moment, or distract Maya with a question about school while he finished getting ready. Small things. Considerate things. The kind of awareness that came from someone who actually paid attention. In the evenings, after Maya's bedtime, they'd find themselves in the living room, Serena with her laptop, Adrian with his design work, the comfortable silence of people who didn't need to perform for each other. Sometimes they'd talk about inconsequential things. A show one of them was watching, an article about architecture or economics, the absurdity of their neighbor's decorative garden gnome collection. "I counted 14 of them today," Adrian said one night. 15. "There's a new one by the tomatoes. It's holding a tiny shovel." That's commitment to a theme, or a cry for help. Their conversations felt easy in a way Adrian hadn't experienced in years. Serena was smart without being showy about it, funny without trying too hard, present without demanding attention. She asked questions that suggested genuine interest but never pushed when he kept answers surface level. He learned she liked cooking, actually enjoyed it in a way that seemed rare. On Wednesday evening, he came home from picking up Maya to find Serena chopping vegetables with professional precision. "I'm making stir-fry," she said. "I made too much, if you two want to join me." "You don't have to." "I know, but I did, and it seems silly to eat alone when we're all here." They ate together at the small kitchen table, Maya chattering about her day, Serena listening with the same attention she brought to everything. The food was genuinely excellent, vegetables cooked just right, sauce balanced perfectly, rice that actually had flavor. "Where did you learn to cook like this?" Adrian asked. "Self-taught, mostly. I travel a lot for work, eat in restaurants constantly. Cooking at home became a way to feel grounded." "What kind of consulting do you do?" For the briefest moment, something shifted in Serena's expression. Not quite hesitation, but a careful recalibration. "Investment analysis, helping clients figure out where to put their money." "That sounds stressful." "It can be, but it's also satisfying when things work out, when you help someone build something that lasts." Maya pointed her fork at Serena. "Like Daddy's buildings. He takes broken ones and makes them beautiful again." "Exactly like that," Serena agreed, and the smile she gave Adrian felt like recognition. The following Sunday it rained, one of those gray, steady rains that turned the world soft and quiet. Maya pressed her face against the window, disappointed that playground plans were canceled. "We could build a fort," Serena suggested from the couch, where she was reading her book. "A fort?" "Sure, blankets, pillows, chairs, a proper architectural challenge." Adrian watched from the kitchen as Serena and Maya collaborated, his daughter's initial skepticism giving way to enthusiasm as the structure took shape. They debated load-bearing walls, discussed the optimal angle for a blanket roof, problem solved when the first attempt collapsed in giggles. "We need more structural support," Maya declared with the seriousness of a lead engineer. "Agreed. What if we use these dining chairs as the frame?" They worked together for an hour, and when the fort finally stood stable, a cozy cave of blankets lit by a string of fairy lights Serena produced from somewhere, Maya crawled inside with an expression of pure joy. "Come see, Daddy!" Adrian crouched down to peer into the fort. Maya had arranged her favorite stuffed animals in a circle, and Serena had somehow procured a plate of cookies and 2 juice boxes. "It's perfect, sweetheart." Serena helped, but I did the engineering. "Strong engineering is critical," Serena said, maintaining absolute seriousness. Adrian caught her eye over Maya's head, and something passed between them, a shared moment of delight in his daughter's happiness, of adults conspiring to make magic from blankets and string lights. Later, after Maya fell asleep in the fort and Adrian carried her to bed, he found Serena cleaning up the construction debris. "You didn't have to do that," he said, the same words he kept saying to her. "I know, but I wanted to." She folded a blanket with those precise corners she always created. "She's really special, Adrian. The way she thinks, the way she engages with the world. That doesn't happen by accident. You've given her something rare." "What's that?" "Safety to be herself. Permission to take up space. Those are gifts." Adrian leaned against the doorframe, studying this woman who'd walked into their lives 2 weeks ago and somehow already felt essential. "Why do you live like this?" "Like what?" "Simply. You clearly have money. The clothes are expensive, even if they're plain. The laptop is top of the line. The way you move through the world suggests someone used to resources. But you're here, sharing a bathroom, eating leftovers, building blanket forts on Sunday." Serena was quiet for a long moment, her hand stilling on the blanket. "Do you really want to know?" "Yes." "I got tired of impressive. Tired of spaces designed to impress rather than comfort. Relationships built on what I could provide rather than who I am. I spent years in a world where everything was performance, where vulnerability was weakness and authenticity was a liability." She met his eyes. "This," she gestured at the apartment, the blanket fort's remains, the ordinary sacred space they'd created. "This is the first place I've felt like a person in years." The honesty in her voice struck something in Adrian's chest. He understood that exhaustion, that hunger for something real beneath the performance. "I get that," he said quietly. "After Maya's mom left, I built my entire life around protection. Keep things simple. Keep people at distance. Don't risk needing anything you can't guarantee. It's a small life, but it's safe." Is safety enough? It was. Until recently. The words hung in the air between them, loaded with meanings neither was quite ready to name. Serena looked away first, folding the last blanket. "I should get to bed. Early call tomorrow." "Serena?" She paused in the doorway. "Thank you. For today. For ye..." He gestured vaguely at everything, unable to articulate the gratitude he felt. Thank you for letting me be part of it. After she disappeared into her room, Adrian stood in the living room for a long time, looking at the space where the blanket fort had been, and wondering why safety suddenly felt like the loneliest word in the English language. 3 weeks in, the routines deepened. Adrian found himself looking forward to mornings, to the quiet moments when he'd emerge from Maya's room to find Serena already at the table, the smell of good coffee filling the apartment. They'd developed a shorthand, the way she'd raise her mug in silent greeting, the way he'd set out an extra plate if he was making breakfast, the comfortable silence that needed no explanation. Maya adored her. That was becoming increasingly clear. His daughter, who'd been cautious around adults since her mother left, bloomed around Serena like a flower finding unexpected sun. She'd bring her homework to the kitchen table where Serena worked, quietly doing division problems while Serena typed away on investment analyses, occasionally asking questions that Serena answered with patience and genuine engagement. "What's a derivative one?" Maya asked one evening. Adrian looked up from his design work, about to explain in simple terms, but Serena got there first. "It's like a promise about the future," she said, not talking down but not overcomplicating either. "Imagine I promise to sell you an apple next week for $1, because we think apples will cost $2 by then. That promise itself becomes valuable. That's basically a derivative." "That sounds complicated." "It is. But so is division, and you're figuring that out just fine." Maya considered this, then returned to her homework, satisfied. Adrian watched the exchange with something warm and terrifying growing in his chest. This ease between them, this natural flow. It felt dangerous because it felt permanent, like something he could get used to, like something he could need. On Friday night, his laptop crashed mid-project, taking 3 days of work with it. He sat at the kitchen table at 10 p.m., staring at the blank screen with the kind of exhaustion that went bone deep. "What's wrong?" Serena emerged from her room, probably drawn by the quiet cursing. "I'm an idiot who didn't back up his files." "Can I look?" "Unless you're secretly a tech wizard." She'd already pulled out her laptop, connecting cables with practiced efficiency. "What were you working on?" "Adaptive reuse proposal for a warehouse downtown. 3 days of rendering, gone." Her fingers moved across the keyboard with the kind of speed that suggested serious computer literacy. "Do you have automatic cloud sync enabled?" "I thought I did." "Let me check." "Okay, here. Your files are in the cloud storage. They backed up automatically 4 hours ago." The relief hit him so hard he actually laughed. "You're serious?" "Completely. You lost about 4 hours of work, not 3 days." "How did you—" "I spend a lot of time managing data. You learn the recovery tricks." She transferred the files to his repaired system, and within minutes his project reappeared on screen, mostly intact. Adrian looked at her, this woman who'd appeared in his life like an answer to a question he hadn't known to ask. "Thank you. Seriously, you just saved my entire weekend." "Happy to help." She started to stand, but he caught her hand without thinking. "Serena, wait, He didn't know how to finish the sentence. "Thank you" felt inadequate. "You're amazing" felt too revealing. "You're becoming essential" felt terrifying. She looked down at where his hand held hers, then back at his face, and something in her expression shifted, became more open, more vulnerable. "I like being here," she said quietly. "I like helping. I like being needed." "Is that okay to say?" Yeah. They stayed like that for a moment, hands connected, the apartment quiet around them except for the radiator's familiar clank. Then Serena gently extracted her hand, the moment broken but not forgotten. "Good night, Adrian." "Good night." He worked for another hour, but his focus was fractured, his mind replaying the way she'd looked at him, the warmth in her voice when she said she liked being needed. This was getting complicated. This was getting real. And Adrian didn't know if he was brave enough for what real might mean. The first crack appeared on a Wednesday evening. Adrian was reviewing blueprints when his phone rang, an unknown number with a New York area code. He answered absently, expecting a spam call. "Adrian Hale?" "Speaking." "This is Jennifer Walsh from the Marcus Foundation. I wanted to follow up on our meeting last month regarding the historic renovation project." Adrian's brain stuttered. The Marcus Foundation. He'd sent his portfolio to them months ago, a Hail Mary application for a dream project, reimagining a century-old factory into community space. He'd interviewed once, briefly, and then heard nothing. "Oh, yes, of course. I apologize for the delay. We've been working through funding, but I'm pleased to tell you we'd like to move forward with you as lead designer. The project would start in 3 months, timeline approximately 18 months, with a significant increase from your current rate." She named a figure that made Adrian's vision blur slightly. That's incredible, thank you. Yes, absolutely yes. They talked logistics for 15 minutes. He took notes with shaking hands, barely processing the details beyond the central impossible fact. His career was about to change. Financial security, professional recognition, the kind of project that could redefine everything. When he hung up, Serena was standing in the kitchen doorway, a slight smile on her face. "Good news?" Yeah, a project I applied for months ago. They want me." "Adrian, that's wonderful. Tell me about it." He explained, words tumbling over themselves, the excitement finally breaking through his usual controlled demeanor. Serena listened with genuine interest, asking smart questions about the scope and timeline. "This is huge," she said. "You should celebrate, both of you. Want to go out for dinner? My treat." "You don't have to." "I want to. This is a big deal. It deserves recognition." So they went to Maya's favorite pizza place, the one with questionable decor but excellent margarita pizza. Maya sensed the celebratory mood and responded with her best behavior, charming their server and eating her vegetables without complaint. Watching his daughter laugh at something Serena said, seeing the easy affection between them, Adrian felt the dangerous warmth in his chest expand into something he couldn't ignore anymore. He was falling for her. Not the dramatic, sweep-you-off-your-feet kind of falling, something quieter and more terrifying, the kind that came from shared coffee mornings and rescued computer files and blanket fort construction, the kind that meant she'd become woven into the fabric of their life so thoroughly that imagining her absence felt like imagining a world without color. They walked home through the warm evening, Maya between them, holding both their hands. People probably thought they were a family, Adrian realized. The thought should have felt uncomfortable. It felt like hope. That night, after Maya was asleep, Adrian found Serena on the balcony, looking at the city lights. "Mind if I join you?" "Please." They stood in comfortable silence for a while, the sounds of Austin settling into evening around them. "Can I ask you something?" Adrian said finally. "Of course." "Why are you really here? And I don't mean the official answer. I mean, you could be anywhere. You're smart, obviously successful. You could have your own place, your own life. Why are you sharing a bathroom and building forts with a 6-year-old? Serena was quiet for a long time, her expression unreadable in the dim light. "Do you believe people can get lost?" she asked finally. "Not physically, but existentially? Like they can be exactly where they're supposed to be on paper and still feel completely displaced?" "Yes. I was lost for a long time, living a life that looked right but felt empty. And then I ended up here, in this apartment with you and Maya, and for the first time in years, I feel found, like I'm actually where I belong." Adrian's heart was pounding. Serena. His phone rang, shattering the moment. He almost ignored it, but the ringtone was Maya's school. "I need to—" Of course. It was the school nurse. Maya had mentioned feeling unwell at pickup. Could she have caught something? Nothing serious, but worth monitoring. Adrian thanked her and hung up, adrenaline already shifting to parent mode. When he turned back to the balcony, Serena was gone. He found her in her room, door slightly ajar, sitting at her desk with her back to him. Something about her posture made him pause. "Everything okay?" she asked without turning. "Just the school following up." "Maya's fine." "Serena, about what you said, we should both get some sleep. Big day tomorrow." The dismissal was gentle but absolute. Adrian stood there for a moment, feeling the moment slip away, then retreated to the living room that had become his bedroom. He lay awake for hours, replaying the conversation, the almost confession, the way she'd looked at the city lights like she was searching for something she'd lost. In her room, Serena did the same, her hand pressed against her chest where her heart beat too fast, where hope and fear were indistinguishable from each other. Neither of them slept well. Neither of them knew that tomorrow everything would shift. Because tomorrow, a man in an expensive suit would knock on their door, and the careful world they'd built would crack wide open. The knock came at 10 a.m. on a Thursday, precise and authoritative. Adrian was reviewing the Marcus Foundation contract at the kitchen table, highlighter in hand, when the sound cut through his concentration. Serena had left early for a meeting, and Maya was at school. He wasn't expecting anyone. Through the peephole, he saw a man in his late 30s wearing a suit that probably cost more than Adrian's monthly rent. Dark hair perfectly styled, posture that screamed old money and Ivy League education. The man knocked again, patient but insistent. Adrian opened the door. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for Serena Vale. I was told she's staying here." The man's voice matched his appearance, polished, confident, with the faint accent of someone who'd spent time in European boarding schools. "She's not here right now. Can I take a message?" The man's eyes swept past Adrian into the apartment, taking in the modest space with barely concealed surprise. "And you are?" "Adrian Hale. I live here. Who are you?" "Damien Cross. He paused, recalibrating. "An old friend of Serena's. When do you expect her back?" Something about the way he said old friend made Adrian's instincts prickle. There was possession in it, familiarity that went deeper than friendship. "I'm not sure. You could try calling her." "I have. She's not answering." Damien pulled out a business card, extending it with the casual authority of someone used to being accommodated. "Please have her contact me. It's important." Adrian took the card. Damien Cross, Managing Director, Cross Ventures. The address was Manhattan. The cardstock was heavy, expensive. "I'll let her know." Damien's gaze returned to the apartment's interior, and something like concern crossed his features. "She's really living here, in a shared apartment." The judgment in his voice sparked Adrian's defensive instincts. "Is there a problem with that?" "No, just unexpected. Serena has particular tastes. This doesn't seem like her usual environment." "Maybe you don't know her as well as you think." A flicker of something, amusement, respect, passed through Damien's expression. "Perhaps, or perhaps you don't know her at all." He left before Adrian could formulate a response, his footsteps echoing down the stairwell with the confidence of someone who knew he'd planted a seed of doubt. Adrian stood in the doorway for a long moment, turning the business card over in his hands. The unease sitting in his stomach felt disproportionate to the interaction, but he couldn't shake it. The way Damien had looked at the apartment, the way he'd said Serena's name like it belonged to him. He placed the card on the kitchen counter and tried to return to the contract, but the words blurred together. Serena came home at noon, arms full of grocery bags, her face relaxed in a way he'd come to recognize as her post-productive morning expression. "Hey, I grabbed ingredients for that pasta dish Maya liked. Thought I'd make it tonight if that's—" She stopped, seeing his expression. "What's wrong?" "You had a visitor, Damien Cross." The grocery bags hit the counter harder than intended. Every trace of relaxation vanished from her face, replaced by something that looked like dread. "What did he say?" "That he's an old friend, that he needs you to call him, that this apartment doesn't seem like your usual environment." Adrian pushed the business card across the counter. "Who is he, Serena?" She picked up the card like it might burn her fingers, then set it down carefully. "He's someone from my past, my professional past." "That's not an answer." "I know." She pressed her palms flat against the counter, gathering herself. "Damien and I were together for 3 years. We broke up 8 months ago." The information landed like a physical blow, which was irrational. Of course, Serena had a past, had relationships, had a whole life before she showed up in Adrian's apartment. But hearing it, seeing the tension in her shoulders, made something cold settle in his chest. "Were you going to mention that?" "It didn't seem relevant. It's over." He didn't look like it was over. He looked like he owned you. Serena's head snapped up, her eyes flashing. "No one owns me. That's precisely why we ended." "What does that mean?" She was quiet for a long moment, her fingers drumming against the counter in an uncharacteristic display of agitation. "Damien and I met at a conference. He was brilliant, ambitious, came from the kind of family where success isn't a goal, it's an obligation. We made sense on paper. Our careers aligned, our social circles overlapped, our families approved. It was easy." Easy doesn't sound like a ringing endorsement. It wasn't meant to be. She finally met his eyes, and the vulnerability there caught him off guard. He wanted me to be a particular kind of person, the right clothes, the right events, the right performance. And I tried. For 3 years, I tried to be what he needed, but it never felt real. It felt like living in a beautifully decorated cage. So you left. So I left. Walked away from the relationship, from the lifestyle, from all of it. I wanted to figure out who I was without all the expectations. That's how I ended up here. Adrian processed this, trying to reconcile the woman standing in his kitchen with the image Damien had painted. What does he want? Probably for me to come back. To the relationship. To that life. He's called a dozen times in the past month. I've ignored all of it. Maybe you should talk to him. Get closure. I have closure. I don't owe him anything. The sharpness in her voice surprised him. Serena was usually so measured, so calm. This defensiveness suggested wounds not fully healed. I wasn't suggesting you owe him anything, but if he's showing up here, at our home, maybe he needs to hear it directly. Our home. The words slipped out naturally, and from the way Serena's expression softened, she'd caught them too. You're right, she said quietly. I'll handle it. I'm sorry he came here. I'm sorry he brought his world into ours. It's fine. It's not. You and Maya, this space, it's separate from all that. I wanted to keep it that way. Before Adrian could respond, his phone buzzed. Maya's school again. He answered, already moving toward his keys. Mr. Hale, Maya's temperature is elevated. You should come pick her up. The conversation with Serena would have to wait. By evening, Maya was curled on the couch with a fever, her small body radiating heat while she watched cartoons with glazed eyes. Adrian had given her medicine and set up the sick day routine they'd perfected over the years, but the worry sat heavy in his chest the way it always did when she was unwell. Serena appeared from her room, having given them space for the afternoon. How is she? Fever's stubborn, probably just a virus, but you know how it is. Can I do anything? We're okay. You should probably keep your distance. No point both of you getting sick. Serena ignored this advice entirely, crouching down by the couch. Hey, Maya, I heard you're not feeling great. My head hurts, Maya said in a small voice that broke Adrian's heart. That's the worst. When I was little and felt sick, my grandmother used to make me ginger tea with honey. Want me to try? Maya nodded weakly. Adrian watched Serena move through the kitchen with quiet efficiency, brewing tea and preparing toast with butter. Simple comfort food that might stay down. She brought it to Maya with a gentleness that made his chest ache. Small sips, okay? And if your tummy feels weird, you tell your dad right away. Okay. Maya took a tiny sip, then looked up at Serena with fever-bright eyes. Are you leaving? What? No, sweetheart. I'm right here. The man who came today. He looked like the kind of person who makes people leave. Adrian and Serena exchanged glances over Maya's head. His daughter's intuition was unnervingly sharp. I'm not going anywhere, Serena said firmly. That man is from my old life. This is my real life, right here. Promise? I promise. Maya seemed satisfied, settling back into the cushions. Within minutes, she was asleep, the tea half finished on the coffee table. Adrian and Serena sat in the dim living room, the only light coming from the muted television. The intimacy of the moment, both of them keeping vigil over his sleeping daughter, felt profound. She's worried about me leaving, Serena said quietly. She's already lost one person. She's protecting herself. She loves you. We both... Adrian stopped himself. She's gotten attached. So have I. Serena's voice was barely audible. To both of you, more than I probably should have. The confession hung between them, loaded with everything they hadn't said. Adrian felt his carefully constructed walls cracking, the safety he'd built around his heart proving insufficient against this quiet woman who'd somehow become essential. Serena. His phone rang again. He cursed softly, but the caller ID showed his sister in Denver. He answered, keeping his voice low. The conversation was brief and unwelcome. His mother had fallen, broken her hip, was in surgery now. His sister needed him to come help manage care, at least for a few days. I can fly out tomorrow, he said, already calculating logistics that felt impossible. But Maya's sick, and I can't leave her, and I'll stay with her. Serena's voice was immediate and certain. Adrian covered the phone. You don't have to. I want to. You need to be with your family. Maya will be fine with me. He searched her face for hesitation and found only steady confidence. After a moment, he nodded, returning to the phone to confirm with his sister. When he hung up, the weight of the situation settled over him. His mother in surgery, his daughter sick, the project with the Marcus Foundation starting to make demands, Damian Cross appearing like a ghost from Serena's past. "This is a lot," he said aloud. "Life usually is, but you don't have to carry it alone." "I've been alone for 3 years. I'm good at it." Being good at something doesn't mean it's good for you. The truth of it stung. Adrian had convinced himself that self-sufficiency was strength, that not needing anyone was protection. But sitting here with Serena, watching her care for his daughter with such natural tenderness, he wondered if he'd just been afraid. "Thank you," he said, "for staying with her, for all of it. You don't have to thank me for wanting to be here." The next morning, Adrian's flight left at 6 a.m. He'd spent a sleepless night making lists, preparing instructions, worrying about everything that could go wrong. When he emerged from Maya's room at 5, Serena was already in the kitchen, coffee brewing. "I made you breakfast for the flight," she said, handing him a container. "And I wrote down Maya's medicine schedule, but I already have it memorized. Her doctor's number is in my phone. The school knows I'm authorized to pick her up. Stop worrying." "How did you—" "You're very loud at not sleeping. I heard you pacing." Despite everything, Adrian smiled. "I'm that obvious?" Only to people paying attention. He wanted to say something significant, something that acknowledged what this meant. Her staying, him trusting her, the way their lives had become irreversibly tangled. But his phone was buzzing with the rideshare notification and Maya was stirring in the other room. "I should say goodbye to her." Maya was groggy but coherent, her fever finally broken. She hugged him tight, her small arms surprisingly strong. "Grandma's gonna be okay," she said with the certainty of children who haven't learned about mortality yet. "I know, baby, and Serena's going to be here with you." "I know. We'll be fine. We might even have fun." Not too much fun. When he left, he looked back to see Serena standing in the doorway with Maya tucked under her arm, both of them waving. They looked like a family. The thought followed him all the way to the airport. The 4 days Adrian was gone felt like months. He called every evening, and Maya would chatter about her day, how Serena had made her special soup, how they'd watched movies and done puzzles, how Serena had helped with the homework her teacher sent home. His daughter sounded happy, healthy, cared for. "She's really good at math," Maya reported on day 3. "Like, really good. She explained fractions with cookies, and now I actually get it." "That's great, sweetheart. Are you feeling better?" "Completely better. Can we keep her forever?" Adrian's heart clenched. "It's not quite that simple." "Why not? She fits." Out of the mouths of babes. When Adrian finally returned on Sunday evening, exhausted from hospitals and family logistics, he opened the door to find the apartment transformed. Not dramatically. Serena hadn't redecorated or overstepped. But there were small touches. Fresh flowers on the table, the scent of something delicious baking, Maya's artwork newly displayed on the refrigerator. "Daddy!" Maya launched herself at him, and he caught her, breathing in the familiar smell of her shampoo. "Hey, baby, I missed you so much." "I missed you too, but we had a really good time. Serena taught me to make bread. Real bread. Not the kind from the store." Serena emerged from the kitchen, wiping flour from her hands, and the sight of her, comfortable in his space, at home in his life, hit Adrian like a physical force. "Welcome back," she said, and her smile was warm but careful. "How's your mother?" "Recovering, cranky but stable, which is basically her default state." The best sign. They stood there, Maya between them, and the apartment felt full in a way it never had before. Complete. Right. That night, after Maya was asleep, Adrian found Serena on the balcony again, their default location for conversations that mattered. "Thank you," he said, "for everything. I know it was a lot." "It wasn't. Maya's wonderful. Taking care of her wasn't a burden. It was—" She paused, searching for words. "It was an honor. She loves you. She asked if we could keep you forever." Serena laughed softly. "Forever's a long time." "She's 6. Everything is forever at that age." "Well, what about you?" The question caught him off guard. What about me? Do you want to keep me forever? She said it lightly, but there was something vulnerable underneath, something real. Adrian looked at her, this woman who'd walked into his life as a practical solution and become something he couldn't define, something essential. I think that depends on whether you want to be kept. Well, what if I told you I've never felt more at home anywhere than I do in this cramped apartment with questionable water pressure? I'd say you should get out more. Adrian, his name was gentle on her lips. I'm serious. These 4 days, taking care of Maya, being here, it clarified something for me. I don't want this to be temporary. I don't want to go back to impressive and empty. I want this life, this home. His heart was pounding. Serena. Her phone rang, the sound sharp in the quiet evening. She glanced at it, and her expression changed. It's Damien. He's called 6 times today. You should answer. Get it over with. She nodded, stepping inside for privacy. Adrian tried not to listen, but the balcony door was open and voices carried. Damien, I've been clear. Serena's voice was firm. He couldn't hear the other side, but he heard her responses. No, I'm not coming back to New York because I don't want to. That's not your decision to make. Where I'm living is none of your concern. Damien, we've been over this. A long pause. That's manipulative, and you know it. I don't care what your family thinks. No, I will not meet you for coffee to discuss this reasonably, because there's nothing to discuss. We're done. We've been done. Another pause, longer this time. My life is here now, with people who... She stopped herself. With a life that feels real. You wouldn't understand that. When she hung up, her hands were shaking slightly. Adrian came inside, giving her space but showing presence. That sounded difficult. He doesn't accept no easily. He's used to negotiating until he gets what he wants. What does he want? Me back in his world? He's been offered a position in London, wants me to come with him, build an empire together, or whatever romantic spin he's putting on it. And you don't want that. I want this. I want making bread with a 6-year-old and debating the merits of different mac and cheese. I want the life I have here. Even though it's small, even though it's complicated. She moved closer and Adrian could smell her shampoo, see the intensity in her dark eyes. Especially because of those things. Don't you see? This is the first time I've lived instead of performed. The first time I've been seen instead of displayed. The space between them felt charged, heavy with everything unsaid. Adrian knew if he stepped forward, if he closed that distance, everything would change. The careful roommate arrangement would shatter. The safety would evaporate. His phone buzzed. The Marcus Foundation. He glanced at it. An email flagged urgent. I should... Of course. The moment broke. Serena retreated to her room, and Adrian spent the next hour on a video call with the Foundation's project manager, discussing timeline adjustments and permit complications, professional obligations pulling him back from personal precipices. When he finally finished, it was past midnight. Serena's light was off. The moment had passed. Adrian lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, wondering why he kept pulling back from the one thing he wanted. The next 2 weeks fell into a pattern that felt both perfect and precarious. Mornings were the same, coffee and comfortable silence, Maya between them like a bridge. Serena continued cooking dinners most nights, and Adrian found himself looking forward to those shared meals with an intensity that scared him. The conversations flowed easily, his design work, her investment projects, Maya's ongoing obsession with constellations. Did you know that Betelgeuse might explode into a supernova any day now? Maya announced over pasta one evening. Any day in cosmic terms, Serena clarified. Could be tomorrow, could be 100,000 years from now. Still, it's exciting. Daddy, if it explodes, we have to watch it together, all of us. Deal, Adrian said, catching Serena's eye across the table. But underneath the domestic harmony, tension built. Damien kept calling. Serena kept declining. Adrian watched her stress levels rise with each ignored call, saw the way she'd check her phone with dread. He's not giving up, she said one night. Maybe you need to see him, face to face. Make it absolutely clear. I don't owe him that. I'm not saying you owe him. I'm saying maybe you need it. Closure. Finality. She considered this, then nodded reluctantly. Maybe you're right. The meeting was scheduled for Saturday at a coffee shop downtown. Serena dressed carefully, not in her usual simple clothes, but in something that reminded Adrian she had another life, another identity. The tailored blazer, the designer bag she'd never used before. Armor. You look different, Maya observed. I have to go see someone from my old life. I need to look the part. Are you coming back? Of course I am. This is where I live. After she left, Maya turned to Adrian with worried eyes. What if she doesn't come back? She will. How do you know? Because she promised, and Serena keeps her promises. But as the hours ticked by, Adrian found his own certainty wavering. He tried to work on the Marcus project, but his focus was shot. He played with Maya, but his mind wandered. He checked his phone obsessively, though Serena hadn't said she'd text. She'd been gone for 4 hours when his phone finally buzzed. Not Serena. A text from an unknown number. You should know who Serena really is before you get too attached. D. Below was a link to a Forbes article. Against his better judgment, Adrian clicked it. The headline made his stomach drop. Serena Vale, the billionaire investor who rewrote venture capital's rules. The article was 18 months old, filled with photos of a woman who looked like Serena but wasn't quite. Same face, different energy. Designer gowns at charity galas, handshakes with politicians and CEOs, references to her family's fortune, her Harvard MBA, her reputation as one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the country. Ms. Vale's investment philosophy focuses on transformative potential rather than quarterly returns, the article quoted her. I'm interested in building legacies, not portfolios. There were photos of her with Damien at various events, looking perfectly matched in their elegant world. Adrian read the entire article twice, his hands numb. A billionaire, living in his cramped apartment, sharing his bathroom, making bread with his daughter. The door opened. Serena came in looking exhausted, the armor slightly crumpled. She saw his face and stopped. What's wrong? He held up his phone, showing the article. Her expression went carefully blank. Damien sent you that. He did. Is it true? The facts? Yes. The framing? That's debatable. You're a billionaire. His voice sounded strange to his own ears. Technically, on paper, most of it's tied up in investments and foundations. And you didn't think that was worth mentioning? When? When would it have been relevant? Her voice rose slightly, defensive. When you were interviewing me as a roommate? Hi, I'm Serena. I'm a billionaire, but I'd like to share your bathroom. When Maya and I were building a blanket fort? By the way, I could buy this entire building? When exactly was I supposed to work that into casual conversation? How about any time in the last 2 months? We've shared our lives, Serena. I've told you about Maya's mother, about my fears, about everything, and you've been lying. I haven't lied. I've been private about irrelevant details. Irrelevant? Adrian laughed, the sound bitter. You're a billionaire living like you're broke. Nothing about that is irrelevant. I'm not living like I'm broke. I'm living honestly. For the first time in my adult life, people see me instead of my bank account. You see me. Maya sees me. Not what I can provide or what I represent. Just me. That's not fair. You didn't give me the choice. Would you have? If you'd known who I was, what I'm worth, would you have let me move in? Would you have let Maya get attached? Or would you have assumed I was slumming, playing at normal life, treating your home like an anthropological experiment? The accusation hit close enough to make him flinch. She was probably right. If he'd known, he would have built walls, kept distance, protected Maya and himself from the inevitable moment when she'd return to her real life. So what is this then? He asked. What are we? A project? A phase? What happens when you get bored of playing house? Serena's face went pale. Playing house? Is that what you think this is? I don't know what to think. You're a billionaire, Serena. You could be anywhere, do anything. And you're here, in my one-bedroom apartment, pretending... I'm not pretending anything. Her voice cracked. This is the realest thing in my life. These mornings, these dinners, Maya's laughter, She stopped herself. Everything here matters more than anything in that article. Can't you see that? I see that you lied. I omitted. There's a difference. Not to me. Not when trust is all we have. They stood facing each other across the small living room, the space between them feeling unbridgeable. In her bedroom, Maya's voice called out, "Daddy, is Serena home?" Adrian closed his eyes. "Yeah, baby, she's home." "What? Can she come say goodnight?" Serena looked at him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "May I?" He nodded, not trusting his voice. She disappeared into Maya's room, and he heard the murmur of their conversation, his daughter's happy chatter, Serena's gentle responses. When she emerged 10 minutes later, her composure was fractured. "She asked me to read 3 chapters instead of 1, Serena said quietly. "I couldn't say no." "You're good with her. That was never in question." "What is in question?" "Everything. Who you are. Why you're here. Whether any of this is real." "It's real to me." Her voice was fierce. "Every moment, every conversation, every breakfast. It's the most real thing I've ever had." "How am I supposed to believe that? You could buy anything, be anywhere. Why would you choose this?" "Because impressive is easy and real is hard. Because I've spent my entire adult life in spaces designed to impress people I didn't like, having conversations that meant nothing, performing a version of myself that I didn't recognize. And then I came here, and for the first time I could breathe. I could be Serena who makes bread and explains math homework, not Serena Vale, the billionaire investor. Can't you understand that? I understand that you had a choice about trust, and you chose to hide. I chose to protect something precious. If you'd known, would we be here? Would you have let yourself—" She stopped again, swallowing whatever she'd been about to say. "Would you have given this a chance?" Adrian wanted to say yes, wanted to be the kind of man who wouldn't have judged, wouldn't have protected himself. But he wasn't sure it was true. "I don't know," he admitted. "At least that's honest." She picked up her bag from the couch. "I'm going to stay at a hotel tonight. Give you space to think." "You don't have to." "I do. Because if I stay, we'll keep circling this, and nothing will get resolved. You need to decide if who I am on paper matters more than who I've been here. And I need to—" Her voice wavered. "I need to accept whatever you decide." She moved toward her room to pack, and Adrian let her go, his chest tight with emotions he couldn't name. 20 minutes later, she stood at the door with a small overnight bag, looking more vulnerable than he'd ever seen her. "For what it's worth," she said quietly, "I've never lied about what matters, about caring for Maya, about feeling at home here, about—" She stopped. "About any of it." Then she was gone, and the apartment felt cavernously empty. Adrian stood in the silence for a long time before walking to Maya's room. His daughter was still awake, her eyes red. "Why did Serena leave?" "She didn't leave. She's just giving us some space." "That's what Mom said." The comparison was a knife between his ribs. "This is different." "How?" "Because Serena's coming back." "Promise?" He wanted to promise, wanted to give his daughter the certainty she craved. But he'd learned the hard way about promises he couldn't guarantee. "I hope so, baby. I really hope so." Maya turned toward the wall, and Adrian knew she was crying quietly, the way she'd learned to do after her mother left. He sat with her until she fell asleep, then returned to the living room and picked up his phone. The Forbes article was still open. He read it again, trying to reconcile the woman in the photos with the woman who'd made bread with his daughter. They were the same person. That was the terrifying part. Serena Vale, billionaire investor, had chosen his apartment, his life, his daughter. The question was why, and whether he was brave enough to believe the answer she'd given him. Adrian didn't sleep that night. He lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, listening to the apartment settle around him with sounds that now felt wrong. The radiator clanked without Serena there to smile at the familiar noise. The refrigerator hummed in a kitchen that wouldn't smell like her coffee in the morning. Even the silence felt different, emptier, like the space itself was holding its breath. At 3 a.m., he gave up pretending and opened his laptop. The Marcus Foundation project stared back at him. Blueprints and timelines that should have excited him but now felt hollow. He tried to focus, tried to lose himself in the work that had always been his refuge, but his mind kept circling back to the look on Serena's face as she'd walked out the door. By dawn, he'd made no progress on the project and had read the Forbes article 6 more times. Each reading revealed new details that made the disconnect more jarring. Serena had started her first fund at 24. She'd turned an inherited fortune into something exponentially larger, through investments that combined profit with social impact. She sat on boards of companies worth billions. She'd been featured in Time magazine's 40 Under 40 list, and she'd been living in his second bedroom, teaching his daughter about fractions with cookies. The dissonance was overwhelming. Not because he doubted her sincerity. He'd seen her with Maya, heard the authenticity in her voice when she talked about feeling at home, but because he couldn't escape the math of it. She could have anything, anyone. A penthouse in Manhattan, a villa in Tuscany. Men who matched her world, who understood the language of private equity and charity galas and whatever else existed in that stratosphere. Why would she choose a struggling architect and his 6-year-old daughter in a cramped Austin apartment? The question felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, afraid to look down. Maya woke at 7, quieter than usual. She padded into the living room and climbed onto the couch next to him without speaking, just pressed herself against his side with a sigh that sounded too old for her years. "Morning, baby. Is she coming back today?" "I don't know." "Did you fight about me?" The question pierced him. "What?" "No. Sweetheart, why would you think that?" "Because Mom left and you said it wasn't about me, but then she never came back. So maybe it was about me and you just didn't want to tell me." Adrian pulled her into his lap, holding her tight. "Listen to me. Your mom leaving had nothing to do with you. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. And Serena leaving? She didn't leave. We just needed some space to figure things out." "Figure what out?" How did he explain adult complications to a 6-year-old? How did he put words to the fear and hurt and confusion without making her carry the weight of it? "Sometimes grown-ups have to work through hard things," he said carefully. "Serena and I had a disagreement about trust, but it has nothing to do with you. She loves you. That part isn't in question." "Then why isn't she here?" "Because I needed time to think." "About what?" "About whether I'm brave enough to let someone in." Maya pulled back to look at him with those two wise eyes. "That's silly. She's already in. She's been in for weeks. You're just scared." The clarity of it, delivered with a child's blunt honesty, made him laugh despite everything. "When did you get so smart?" "I told you. I've always been smart. You just don't always listen." She wriggled out of his lap and headed to the kitchen. "I want cereal. The kind Serena buys, not the boring kind you get." "We're out of the kind Serena buys." "Then we should go get some. And maybe we should get flowers too." "Flowers?" "For when she comes back, to say sorry for being scared." "I don't think flowers fix this, sweetheart." "They don't fix it, but they show you care about fixing it. That's what Serena told me when I accidentally broke her favorite mug. I said sorry and got her new flowers for her room, and she said the flowers didn't fix the mug, but they showed I cared about fixing my mistake." Adrian looked at his daughter, this small person who somehow understood emotional architecture better than he did. "You're right. We should get flowers." They spent the morning at the farmer's market, Maya carefully selecting sunflowers because they're happy flowers and Serena needs happy things. Adrian let her choose, carrying the bright blooms while his daughter chattered about which vase would be best and where they should put them so Serena would see them right away when she came home. If she came home. The thought sat like lead in his stomach. Back at the apartment, Maya arranged the flowers with the seriousness of a museum curator, while Adrian tried Serena's number for the 3rd time. It went straight to voicemail again. He didn't leave another message. What could he say that he hadn't already failed to say when she was standing in front of him? By evening, Maya's optimism was wearing thin. She picked at her dinner, kept glancing at Serena's closed bedroom door, and finally asked in a small voice, "What if she doesn't come back?" "She will." "You don't know that." "I don't know it, but I believe it." "Why?" "Because she promised you she would, and because—" He paused, the truth forcing itself out. "Because I think she needs us as much as we need her." Maya considered this, then nodded. "Okay, but if she's not back by tomorrow, we're going to find her, like a rescue mission." "Deal." That night, Adrian lay awake again, but this time he wasn't reading articles or working on blueprints. He was thinking about doors, the ones he'd kept closed for 3 years, the ones Serena had somehow opened without him noticing, the ones he'd slammed shut the moment he felt threatened. He'd built his entire life around control after Maya's mother left. Controlled variables, controlled emotions, controlled vulnerability. It had kept him safe, kept Maya safe, kept their small world spinning on an axis he could predict. But safety had become another word for lonely. Serena had disrupted that loneliness without even trying. She'd just been herself, making coffee at dawn, explaining constellations, reading an extra chapter because Maya asked. She hadn't performed or pretended or promised anything except to be present. And the moment Adrian discovered she had power, real power, the kind that came with billions of dollars and Forbes articles, he'd retreated, not because she'd changed, but because he was terrified of what her choice to be here might mean. If someone with everything chose this, chose him, chose Maya and their cramped apartment and their ordinary life, then it mattered. It was real. It was vulnerable. And vulnerability could break you. But maybe, Adrian thought as dawn crept through the windows, maybe that was the point. Maybe the things worth having were the things that could break you. Maybe protection was just another word for prison. He fell asleep as the sun rose and dreamed of doors standing open. The knock came at 9 a.m., tentative and uncertain. Adrian jerked awake on the couch, disoriented, and for a moment he thought he'd imagined it. Then it came again, and Maya's voice called out from her room. "Is that Serena?" He stumbled to the door, his heart hammering, and looked through the peephole. It wasn't Serena, it was Damien Cross, looking considerably less polished than their first encounter. His suit was rumpled, his tie loose, and there were shadows under his eyes that suggested he'd slept about as well as Adrian had. Adrian opened the door. "What do you want?" "5 minutes of your time, please." The please surprised him enough that he stepped back, letting Damien enter. The man looked around the apartment with the same barely concealed surprise as before, but this time there was something else in his expression, something that might have been regret. "Is that the guy?" Maya appeared in the hallway, arms crossed in a defensive posture that reminded Adrian painfully of himself. "Maya, go to your room." "But now please." She went, but not without shooting Damien a look that could have curdled milk. "Your daughter?" Damien asked. "My daughter. What do you want, Damien?" "To apologize. For sending you that article. For interfering. For—" he ran a hand through his hair, destroying its careful styling. "For being an entitled ass who couldn't accept that Serena made a choice." Adrian hadn't expected that. "Okay. I loved her. Love her. But not enough to let her be herself. I wanted her to be the woman in those photos, perfect, polished, exactly what everyone expected. And she tried. For 3 years she tried to be that person, but it was killing her." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I saw her yesterday, at that coffee shop. And I tried every argument I could think of to get her to come back. The London position, the opportunities, the life we could build together. I reminded her about the galas and the influence and the power to change things on a global scale." Damien's voice went quiet. "And you know what she said?" Adrian waited. "She said that she'd spent years changing the world in ways that looked impressive but felt empty, and that she'd finally found a place where her presence actually mattered, where someone saw her, not her portfolio, where she could make bread with a 6-year-old and feel like she'd done something important." Damien met Adrian's eyes. "She was talking about here, about you, about your daughter." The words landed like stones in still water, ripples spreading outward. "She also said," Damien continued, "that the man she'd fallen in love with probably wouldn't want her anymore once he knew the truth about who she was. That he'd see her money and her power and decide she didn't belong in his world. That she'd finally found something real, and she'd ruined it by being herself." Adrian felt the impact of that confession physically. A punch to his chest. "She said she was in love with me?" She didn't have to say it. It was in every word. Every defense of this place. Every time she talked about your daughter like she was precious. Damien looked around the apartment again, and this time Adrian saw understanding in his expression. "I came here to convince you that you weren't enough for her, that she belonged in my world, with people who understood her. But I was wrong. This place, it's exactly what she's been looking for, and you're the person who gave it to her. I kicked her out. No, you got scared. There's a difference." Damien moved toward the door, then paused. "For what it's worth, I don't think Serena cares about your apartment size or your bank account or any of the things I thought mattered. I think she cares that you see her, really see her. The question is whether you're going to let that fear win or whether you're brave enough to see her back. After Damien left, Adrian stood in the middle of the living room, his carefully constructed worldview crumbling around him. He'd been so focused on the disparity between their worlds that he'd missed the obvious truth. Serena had chosen. She'd walked away from galas and power and a man who could match her resume. She'd chosen breakfast coffee and blanket forts and a 6-year-old's constellation lessons. She'd chosen him, and he'd told her it wasn't real. Is he gone? Maya emerged cautiously. Yeah, baby, he's gone. Good. I didn't like him. He looked at our apartment like it was broken. It is broken. The water pressure is terrible and the radiator clanks, and it's not broken. It's ours, and Serena loves it. She told me she'd lived in fancy places that felt like museums, but our apartment feels like a home. Maya climbed onto the couch. Are you going to go get her now? I don't know where she is. Did you try her phone? She's not answering. Did you try her room? Adrian blinked. What? Her room. Maybe she left something that tells you where she is, like a clue. In movies, people always leave clues. It felt like an invasion of privacy, but Maya was already moving towards Serena's door. Adrian followed, his heart pounding with something between hope and dread. The room was exactly as Serena had left it, sparse but intentional. The bed made with hospital corners, the small plant thriving on the windowsill, the photograph of the sunset. On the desk, her laptop was closed, but next to it was a leather journal Adrian had never noticed before. Should we look? Maya asked. We shouldn't. It's private. But what if she wants us to find something? Adrian knew he was rationalizing, knew he should close the door and respect Serena's privacy, but something in him needed to understand, needed to see what she saw, feel what she felt. He opened the journal. The first pages were what he expected. Investment notes, meeting schedules, phone numbers, and email addresses. But as he flipped further, the content changed, became personal, became real. There were sketches, surprisingly good ones, of the apartment, the kitchen window with its plants, the balcony at sunset, Maya's reading corner with her stuffed animals arranged just so. Each drawing was detailed, careful, capturing not just the physical space but the feeling of it. And there were words. Not diary entries exactly, but observations. Moments. Adrian burned the toast again this morning. Maya laughed and said it was extra crispy on purpose. He smiled like she'd given him absolution. I understand why he needs her approval for everything. She's his measure of whether he's doing it right. But he doesn't see that he's already doing it right. That showing up every day, making her laugh, giving her safety, that's everything. Maya asked me today if I have a family. I said yes, but they live far away. She said, but we're your family too now, right? I couldn't answer. My throat closed up. This child who barely knows me, offering belonging like it's simple. Like family is something you choose, not something you're born into. I want to believe her. I want this to be real. I caught Adrian watching me this morning while I was making coffee. When I looked up, he looked away fast, like he'd been caught at something forbidden. Does he know how he looks at me? Like I'm both the answer and the question. Like he wants to trust but doesn't know how. I understand. I'm the same. We're both so scared of wanting this that we're pretending we don't. Adrian's hand shook as he turned the pages. There were more entries, each one revealing the depth of Serena's investment in their life. The small moments she treasured, the fears she carried, the hope she barely let herself acknowledge. Then he reached the final entry, dated 2 days ago. I told Damien today that I wasn't coming back to his world. He looked at me like I was insane, throwing away everything I'd built for a cramped apartment, and a man who designs buildings instead of owning them. But he doesn't understand. In his world, I was Serena Vale, the portfolio, the resume, the potential. Here, I'm just Serena, the woman who teaches fractions and burns dinner sometimes and doesn't have all the answers. And Adrian sees that version of me. He sees me, or at least he did. I'm terrified he won't anymore, that knowing the truth, the money, the power, the life I left behind, will change how he looks at me. That I'll become the billionaire playing house instead of the woman making bread with his daughter. I should have told him sooner, but I was afraid, because this matters. He matters. Maya matters. And I don't know how to survive losing something that feels this much like home. Adrian closed the journal carefully, his vision blurred. Maya stood next to him, reading over his shoulder despite probably not understanding all the words. "She loves us," Maya said simply. "Yeah, baby, she does. And you love her." It wasn't a question. Adrian looked at his daughter, this small person who saw the truth so clearly it hurt. "Yeah, I do." "Then we have to find her, right now." Adrian pulled out his phone, trying Serena's number again. Still voicemail. He texted, "Please call me, we need to talk." Nothing. He tried to think logically. Where would she go? A hotel. But which one? There were dozens in Austin. He could call them all, but that would take hours. He could wait for her to come back, but what if she didn't? What if she decided that his rejection was final, that she'd burned the bridge by omitting the truth about who she was? His phone buzzed. Not Serena. A text from an unknown number. "She's at the Fairmont, room 847. Don't waste this. D. Damien." The man was still interfering, but this time Adrian was grateful for it. "Get your shoes," he told Maya. "We're going on a rescue mission." The drive downtown felt endless. Maya sat in the back seat, clutching the sunflowers they'd bought yesterday, her face set with determination. "What are you going to say?" she asked. "I don't know yet." "You should say sorry, and that you were scared but you're not anymore, and that we want her to come home." "That's pretty much it, yeah. And that you love her. You should definitely say that." Adrian's heart hammered against his ribs. "I will." The Fairmont's lobby was marble and glass, the kind of space designed to intimidate. Adrian felt acutely aware of his worn jeans and Maya's mismatched socks, but his daughter marched to the elevator with the confidence of someone who knew she belonged everywhere. They rode to the 8th floor in silence. Adrian's mind raced with possible opening lines, each one feeling inadequate. How did you apologize for doubting something real? How did you explain that fear had made you cruel? Room 847 was at the end of the hall. He knocked before he could overthink it. Silence. He knocked again. "Serena, it's Adrian and Maya. Can we talk?" More silence. Maybe she wasn't there. Maybe she'd checked out, left Austin entirely, decided that fighting for something this complicated wasn't worth it. Then he heard movement inside. Footsteps. The security latch sliding. The door opened 6 inches, and Serena looked out at them. She was wearing hotel sweatpants and a t-shirt, her hair pulled back messily, and her eyes were red-rimmed like she'd been crying. She looked at Adrian, then down at Maya holding the sunflowers, and something in her expression cracked. "Hey," Adrian said, his voice rough. "Hey, can we come in?" She hesitated, then stepped back, letting the door swing open. The room was nice. Too nice. The kind of suite that probably cost more per night than his monthly rent. But it looked unlived in, impersonal. There were clothes draped over a chair and her laptop open on the desk, but nothing that suggested comfort or home. Maya walked straight to Serena and held out the sunflowers. "These are for you, to say sorry for Daddy being scared." Serena took them with shaking hands. "Thank you, sweetheart. They're beautiful. I picked them myself. Sunflowers are happy flowers." "They are. Very happy." Serena's voice cracked on the last word. Adrian stepped forward, his courage threatening to fail. "Can we talk? Just for a few minutes?" "I don't know if there's anything left to say." "There's everything left to say. Please." Serena looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. She set the flowers on the desk and gestured to the small sitting area. They sat, Adrian and Maya on the love seat, Serena in the chair across from them, the distance feeling both necessary and unbearable. "I read your journal," Adrian said, "and before you get upset, I know I shouldn't have. It was private and I invaded that, but Maya thought maybe you'd left a clue, and you read my journal." Serena's face went pale, then flushed. "Everything?" "Most of it. Enough." "Then you know—" She stopped, wrapped her arms around herself. "You know how I feel. About this. About you. I know you drew pictures of our apartment. I know Maya asking if you were family made you cry. I know you think I won't see you the same way now that I know about the money." Adrian leaned forward, desperate for her to understand. "And I know I was an idiot. A scared, defensive idiot who took something real and questioned it because I couldn't believe someone like you would choose someone like me. Someone like you, Serena repeated, her voice sharp. What does that mean? Someone who's a good father? Someone who builds things with his hands and his heart? Someone who makes his daughter feel safe and loved and seen? That's who you are, Adrian, and it's exactly who I want. Even though I'm broke? Even though my biggest accomplishment is a warehouse renovation and you've been in Time magazine? Especially because of those things. Don't you see? I've spent my entire adult life around people who measured worth by zeros in bank accounts and titles on business cards. People who saw me as Serena Vale, the portfolio, the potential merger, the social advantage. And I was so tired of being seen as what I could provide instead of who I am. She stood, pacing to the window, her words gaining force. Then I ended up in your apartment, and you didn't know about any of it. You just saw a woman who wanted a room, and Maya saw someone who might read her an extra chapter. And for the first time in years, I got to be just Serena. The person who makes coffee too early and can explain fractions and doesn't have all the answers. That person, not the board member or the investor or the portfolio, just me. I saw you, Adrian said quietly. I see you. That's what scared me. What do you mean? He stood too, needing to close the distance but not quite daring. When I found out who you really were, I panicked. Because if someone with everything, money, power, opportunities I can't even imagine, chose this small life with me and Maya, then it meant something. It was real. And real things can hurt you. Real things can leave. Like Maya's mother. Like Maya's mother. Like anyone I've ever let myself need. So I built walls, made rules, kept everyone at a safe distance where they couldn't get close enough to destroy us. He looked at his daughter, who was watching them both with wide eyes. But you got through anyway. You made coffee in the mornings and built blanket forts and loved my daughter like she was yours. And I fell in love with you without even realizing it. The words hung in the air between them. Serena's breath caught. You fell in love with me. Completely. Terrifyingly. The kind of love that makes you rearrange your entire understanding of what matters. And when I saw that article, saw who you really were, I got scared that I'd built something precious on a foundation that was temporary. That eventually you'd wake up and realize you'd been slumming. That you'd go back to your real life and we'd just be a nice story you told at parties. That's not... Serena's voice broke. I wasn't slumming. This is my real life. This is the only life I want. I know that now, or I'm trying to know it, but I need you to understand why I reacted the way I did. It wasn't about you. It was about me being terrified of needing something I thought I couldn't keep. Serena crossed the space between them in 3 steps, stopping just inches away. And now? Are you still terrified? Yes, but I'm more terrified of losing you because I was too scared to try. She reached up, her hand trembling slightly, and touched his face. I'm scared too. I'm scared that you'll always see me as the billionaire playing at normal life. That you'll never believe this is real for me. That Maya will get hurt if this doesn't work. Maya's already hurt, Maya interjected from the love seat. Because you both keep talking about being scared instead of just being together. They both turned to look at her. She stood up, her small face fierce with 6-year-old wisdom. Serena, you make the best bread and you teach me about stars and you read extra chapters even when you're tired. Daddy, she makes you smile in a way you haven't smiled since Mom left. And both of you make our apartment feel like the best home ever. So stop being scared and just come home, Serena laughed, the sound wet with tears. It's that simple? It is that simple, Maya said. Love is simple. Grown-ups just make it complicated. Adrian looked at this woman standing in front of him. Powerful and vulnerable, complicated and clear, everything he'd been afraid to want. She's not wrong. She's usually not. Serena's thumb traced his cheekbone, her dark eyes searching his face. I love you. I love your daughter. I love your cramped apartment with its terrible water pressure and clanking radiator. I love the life we've built in the past 2 months more than anything I built in the past decade. That's the truth. That's the only truth that matters. I love you too. And I'm sorry I made you doubt that. Sorry I let fear make me cruel. You weren't cruel. You were human. We both were. She smiled, and it was like watching the sun break through clouds. Can we go home now? This hotel is beautiful, but it's not where I belong. Yeah, we can go home. Maya cheered, actually cheered, and launched herself at both of them. They caught her, the three of them tangling together in a hug that felt like every promise Adrian had been too afraid to make. Serena packed quickly. She really did travel light, while Maya provided running commentary on everything that had happened in the day and a half Serena had been gone. The apartment was too quiet, and Daddy drank bad coffee because he doesn't make it as good as you. And I had to explain to Mrs. Chen that you weren't gone forever, you were just having a thinking day. She said that was very mature of you. Very mature indeed, Serena agreed, catching Adrian's eye over Maya's head. In the elevator down, Maya held both their hands, swinging between them like she used to do when she was smaller. In the lobby, a few people glanced their way, probably recognizing Serena from magazines or news articles. She ignored them completely, her focus on Maya's chatter about the rescue mission and the flowers. Adrian watched her navigate the attention with practiced ease, neither engaging nor hiding, just being. And he understood with sudden clarity that this was the difference. In her old life, she'd performed. Here, she just lived. The money hadn't changed, the opportunities hadn't disappeared. But the pressure to be anyone other than herself had lifted. That's what she'd been protecting by not telling him. Not the money itself, but the freedom from it. The drive home felt different from the drive there. Lighter. Maya sang along to the radio, making up words when she didn't know the real ones. Serena joined in, harmonizing in a voice Adrian had never heard before. He glanced at them in the rearview mirror, his daughter and this woman who loved her, and felt the tight knot of fear in his chest finally begin to unravel. When they pulled up to the apartment, Maya unbuckled and leaned forward between the seats. When we get inside, you should kiss. That's what people do in movies when they figure out they love each other. Maya, Adrian started. She's not wrong, Serena said, her eyes bright with amusement and something deeper. She's usually not, Adrian agreed. Inside the apartment, everything looked the same but felt transformed. The sunflowers they'd bought yesterday still sat on the table. Serena's bedroom door stood open, waiting. The space breathed with relief, like the walls themselves had been holding tension. Maya immediately disappeared into her room, declaring she needed to make a welcome home card and leaving Adrian and Serena standing in the living room. So, Serena said. So? Your daughter thinks we should kiss. My daughter has strong opinions about most things. Is that one of them you agree with? Adrian stepped closer, his heart hammering. Yeah, I really do. When he kissed her, it felt like every door he'd kept locked flying open at once. Terrifying and necessary and right. She kissed him back with the same desperation he felt, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. They broke apart, breathing hard, foreheads pressed together. I've wanted to do that since the blanket fort, Serena admitted. I've wanted to do that since you moved in. We're both terrible at timing. We'll get better with practice. Maya's voice called from her room. Are you kissing? You better be kissing. They laughed, the sound filling the space between them. Welcome home, Adrian said. It's good to be home, Serena replied, and the word, home, resonated with truth. That night, after Maya was asleep and the apartment had settled into its familiar rhythms, Adrian and Serena sat on the balcony like they had so many times before. But this time, his arm was around her shoulders, and she was tucked into his side, and the future stretched ahead of them filled with possibility instead of fear. What happens now? Adrian asked. We figure it out. Together. I still have work, responsibilities. You have the Marcus project starting. Maya has school and her constellation obsession. But we do it together. And Damien? Called him this afternoon. Told him definitively that we're done, that I'm happy, and that he needs to respect that. I think he finally heard me. She paused. He actually apologized. For sending you that article, for trying to manipulate the situation. He came by this morning. Told me I'd be an idiot to let you go. That must have been satisfying to hear from your rival. He's not my rival. There's no competition. You chose. Adrian pressed a kiss to her temple. You chose us. Best choice I ever made. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights, until Serena spoke again. Can I ask you something? Anything. When you read my journal, was there anything else you wanted to know? Adrian thought about it. Just one thing, that entry about watching the sunset and feeling lost. When was that? The day before I saw your roommate ad. I was sitting in a hotel room in Manhattan, looking at another beautiful sunset through another window and feeling completely disconnected from my own life, like I was watching someone else live it, and I thought, if I died tomorrow, would anyone miss me? Or would they just miss what I provided? Her voice was quiet, vulnerable in a way that made Adrian hold her tighter. Then I saw your ad. Simple, honest, human, a person needing a roommate, not an investor or a connection or a portfolio, just someone to share a space with. And I thought, maybe that's where I find out who I actually am, in a space where nobody needs me to be anything except present. And did you find out who you are? Yeah. I'm someone who loves making bread and explaining math homework and sitting on balconies with the man I love while his daughter sleeps safely inside. I'm someone who belongs here, in this beautiful broken apartment with its terrible water pressure. I'm Serena, just Serena, and that's enough. Adrian turned her face toward his, seeing the truth of it in her eyes. It's more than enough. It's everything. They kissed again, slower this time, a promise instead of a question. When they finally went inside, Serena headed toward her room out of habit, then stopped. Adrian? Yeah? I don't want to sleep alone anymore. His heart stuttered. You sure? I'm sure. If that's okay. If it's not too fast, or... He pulled her toward the couch that had been his bed for 2 months. It's perfect. It's exactly right. They settled together, her head on his chest, his arms around her, and for the first time in 3 years, Adrian felt complete. The fear was still there. Fear probably never left entirely. But it was manageable now, contained by something stronger. Love. Trust. Home. In her room, Maya smiled in her sleep, some deep part of her knowing that their family was whole again. And in the quiet apartment with its clanking radiator and terrible water pressure, 3 people who'd found each other in the most unexpected way slept peacefully, dreaming of doors that stayed open and tomorrows that felt like promises. Adrian woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the weight of Serena's head still resting on his chest. For a disorienting moment, he thought he'd dreamed it all. The hotel room, the confession, the kiss. But then she stirred, her fingers curling against his shirt, and the reality settled over him with a warmth that felt almost dangerous in its intensity. This was real. She was here. They were here. Morning, Serena murmured, her voice rough with sleep. Morning. How'd you sleep? Better than I have in months. You? Same. They stayed like that for a few minutes, neither wanting to move and break whatever spell the morning had cast. Then Maya's door creaked open, and small footsteps padded toward the living room. I knew it! Maya's delighted voice pierced the quiet. You're cuddling! Serena laughed, lifting her head to look at the triumphant 6-year-old standing over them. Good morning to you too, sweetheart. This is the best morning. Are you staying forever now? I'm staying as long as your dad will have me. Maya turned to Adrian with an expression that suggested he'd better have the right answer. Daddy? Forever sounds about right, he said, catching Serena's eye. Good. Maya climbed onto the couch, wedging herself between them with the confidence of a child who knew she was loved. Can we have pancakes, the special ones Serena makes? I think that can be arranged, Serena said, extracting herself from the tangle of limbs and blankets. But only if you help. I'm an excellent helper. Adrian watched them disappear into the kitchen, their voices blending together in easy conversation about chocolate chips versus blueberries. He lay on the couch for a moment longer, letting the simple perfection of it wash over him. 3 months ago, he had been alone with Maya, convinced that small and safe was enough. Now his entire world had expanded, and the terrifying part was how right it felt. The Marcus Foundation project loomed in the back of his mind, contracts and timelines that would demand his attention soon. But for this morning, he let himself exist in the present, pancakes and laughter, and the woman he loved teaching his daughter the proper way to flip without making a mess. He joined them in the kitchen, stealing a kiss from Serena while Maya was occupied with berry distribution, and felt her smile against his lips. Ew, kissing before breakfast, Maya declared, though her grin suggested she didn't mind at all. Get used to it, kiddo, Adrian said, and Serena's laugh was worth the chocolate chip Maya threw at him. They ate together at the small kitchen table, syrup sticky and conversation easy, and Adrian caught himself memorizing the moment. The way morning light caught in Serena's hair, the smudge of chocolate on Maya's chin, the feeling of contentment that he'd almost convinced himself he didn't need. After breakfast, while Maya was occupied with her weekend cartoons, Adrian found Serena loading the dishwasher with her usual methodical precision. "Can we talk about something?" he asked. She looked up, wariness flickering across her face. "That's never a good opening." "It's not bad. I want to make sure we're on the same page about what this is, what we're doing." Serena dried her hands, giving him her full attention. "Okay, what are we doing?" "I don't know the right labels. Girlfriend seems too casual. Partner, maybe? I just know that I want this to be real, official, not just roommates who happen to be in love." "I want that too. But Adrian, you need to understand what that means. My life is complicated. I have responsibilities, business obligations, a public profile that I can't completely escape. Dating me means photographers sometimes. It means people asking questions. It means I don't care about any of that. You say that now, but Serena." He took her hands, making her look at him. "I spent 3 years building walls because I was afraid of complications. But you're the best complication that ever happened to me. I don't care about photographers or questions or whatever else comes with your world. I care about you, about us, about building something real." She studied his face, searching for doubt. "What about Maya? She'll be affected too. Kids can be cruel when they find out about money or status or Maya knows what matters. You've taught her that. We'll protect her the best we can, but we can't live our lives afraid of what might happen." He paused, gathering courage for what he needed to say next. "I want you to move into my room. Actually move in. Not as a roommate, but as my partner, as part of this family." Serena's eyes widened. "Adrian, I know it's fast. I know we've only been together for one night, but I've loved you for weeks, and pretending otherwise seems stupid now. You already live here. You're already family. This is just making it official. What will Maya think?" "Maya will be thrilled. She's been asking when you're going to sleep in the big bed with me since day one." Serena laughed, then sobered. "I want this. I want it so much it scares me. But I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise that if it gets hard, and it will get hard, you won't run. That you won't let fear make you pull back again. Because I can handle complications and challenges and all of it, but I can't handle you disappearing on me. I promise. No more running. We face things together." "Okay then," she kissed him softly. "Let's do this. Let's be a family." They told Maya over lunch, though the announcement was somewhat redundant given her enthusiastic response. "Finally! I've been waiting forever for you to figure this out. Can we get bunk beds now? Or maybe a bigger apartment where we all have our own rooms, but with a door between yours so you can cuddle whenever you want?" "We'll talk about logistics later," Adrian said, fighting a smile. "For now, we're staying here." "That works too, as long as Serena's staying forever." "I'm staying forever," Serena confirmed, and the simple declaration made Adrian's chest tight. That afternoon, they moved Serena's belongings into Adrian's room, the same room that had been his sanctuary of solitude for 3 years. Watching her hang clothes in his closet, seeing her books slide onto his shelves, felt like watching walls come down in real time. "You have a lot of architecture books," she observed, running her fingers along the spines. "Occupational hazard. You have a surprising number of poetry collections." "My secret vice. I read them when I need to remember that not everything can be quantified." "Read me your favorite sometime?" "Deal." Maya helped with the enthusiasm of someone who thought all of this was a grand adventure, carrying Serena's plant like it was a sacred object and declaring where it should live for optimal sunlight. By evening, the transformation was complete. Serena's presence had fully infiltrated every corner of the apartment, and somehow instead of feeling crowded, it felt complete. That night, after Maya was asleep, they lay in bed together. An actual bed now, not the couch, and talked about logistics. The Marcus Foundation project would start in 2 weeks, requiring Adrian to be on site frequently. Serena had meetings in New York and San Francisco over the next month, but could work remotely otherwise. They'd need to coordinate schedules, arrange childcare for Maya, figure out the daily mechanics of being a family. It's going to be complicated, Serena said. Everything worthwhile is. Spoken like an architect. Spoken like someone who's finally figured out what he wants to build. She turned in his arms to face him. And what's that? This, us, a life that's messy and real and ours. They made love for the first time that night, slow and careful and achingly tender. Afterward, lying tangled together in the darkness, Adrian felt the last of his protective walls crumble completely. This was vulnerability, real, absolute, terrifying vulnerability. And it was worth it. The next few weeks fell into a new rhythm. Mornings remained sacred, coffee and quiet conversation before Maya woke. But now they were Adrian and Serena together, partners in the daily negotiation of life. She'd kiss him goodbye before her calls, and he'd bring her tea when she was working late. They'd take turns with Maya's bedtime routine, and whoever finished first would wait in their shared bed, reading or working until the other joined them. It felt domestic in the best way. Normal. Right, but Adrian could feel something building in him, something he didn't quite have words for. An urgency. A need to capture what he was feeling before it slipped away or transformed into something else. He started writing late at night after Serena fell asleep. Just fragments at first, observations about the way she tied her hair back when she was concentrating or how Maya had started copying her gestures. Then the fragments became longer, became a letter, became a confession. He wrote about the first morning he'd seen her in the kitchen, how something in him had recognized her even then. He wrote about Maya's laughter echoing through the apartment when Serena taught her to make bread. He wrote about the blanket fort and the sunflowers, and the moment on the balcony when he'd almost told her he was falling in love. He wrote about his fear, the bone-deep terror that had made him push her away when he learned the truth, about the 3 years he'd spent protected and alone, convincing himself that safety was enough, about how she'd shattered that illusion just by being herself. He wrote about what it meant to let someone in, to choose vulnerability over protection, to build a life on trust instead of control. The words poured out of him night after night, pages accumulating in a document he titled simply Serena. He didn't know what he'd do with it, didn't know if he'd ever show her or if it was just for him, a way to process the transformation happening in his life. But he kept writing. The Marcus Foundation project kicked off with a site visit on a gray Tuesday morning. Adrian stood in the shell of the century-old factory, Marcus Foundation representatives and city officials surrounding him, and felt the familiar thrill of potential. The building was beautiful in its decay. Brick walls scarred with history, massive windows that let in cathedral light, bones strong enough to support whatever vision he brought to it. "We're thinking community center," the foundation director explained. "Meeting spaces, studios for artists, a commercial kitchen for cooking classes, a place that serves the neighborhood while honoring the building's industrial heritage." Adrian's mind was already racing, seeing possibilities in every corner. The structural integrity is solid. We can preserve these main supports, open up the floor plan while maintaining the architectural character. Natural light will be key. These windows are incredible. And the brick, we don't cover it, we celebrate it. He spent 3 hours on site, taking measurements and photos, asking questions and envisioning solutions. This was what he was good at, seeing potential in broken things, finding ways to make them whole without erasing what made them unique. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd spent years rebuilding structures while keeping himself carefully broken. It had taken Serena to show him that the same principles applied to people. You didn't have to erase the cracks to make something beautiful. Sometimes the cracks were what made it strong. When he got home that evening, energized and full of ideas, he found Serena and Maya in the middle of a baking project that appeared to have exploded. "What happened here?" "We're making cinnamon rolls," Maya announced, covered head to toe in flour. "Serena said they were advanced, but I said I was ready for advanced." "The jury's still out on that assessment," Serena said, trying to wipe flour from her face and only spreading it further. "How was the site visit?" "Incredible. This building, it's exactly the kind of project I've dreamed about. Big enough to matter, challenging enough to be interesting, and the Foundation's vision aligns perfectly with adaptive reuse principles." "Tell me about it, all of it." So he did, pulling up photos on his phone while Maya shaped dough with serious concentration. Serena asked smart questions, made observations that showed she'd been listening to his architectural philosophy all these weeks, offered insights that made him see aspects he'd missed. "The community kitchen idea is brilliant," she said. "But have you thought about partnering with local restaurants for training programs? Create a pipeline from cooking classes to actual employment? That's really smart. I should propose that." "You should. This project has potential beyond just the physical space. It could actually change lives." They talked for an hour, ideas building on ideas, while Maya's cinnamon rolls rose in the oven and the apartment filled with the smell of butter and cinnamon. This was what partnership felt like, Adrian realized. Not just sharing space, but sharing vision, making each other better. That night, after Maya was in bed and the cinnamon rolls, slightly lopsided but delicious, had been devoured, Adrian added another page to his letter. He wrote about watching Serena covered in flour, helping his daughter create something imperfect and wonderful, about how she made his work better just by caring about it, about how she'd become so woven into the fabric of their life that he couldn't imagine it without her. He wrote, "I used to think love was about finding someone who fit into your existing life. But you didn't fit. You expanded. You made the walls stretch, made the ceiling lift, made the whole structure of what I thought my life could be transform into something I didn't know I was allowed to want. You made me believe that wanting was okay, that needing wasn't weakness, that building something real with another person wasn't a liability, but a strength." He paused, reading what he'd written, and felt the truth of it settle in his bones. This wasn't just a letter anymore. It was a blueprint for a life he was finally brave enough to build. 2 weeks later, Serena left for a 4-day business trip to San Francisco. Her first time away since they'd become official, and the apartment felt wrong without her. Maya was clingy, asking when Serena would call, counting down the days until her return. Adrian found himself doing the same, missing her presence in ways both big and small. He missed her coffee expertise. He missed her voice reading bedtime stories to Maya. He missed the way she'd sit next to him while he worked, her presence grounding without being intrusive. He missed her warmth in their bed, the conversations in the dark that had become his favorite part of every day. On the third night, Maya crawled into bed with him, something she hadn't done in over a year. "I miss Serena," she said, small voice muffled against his chest. "Me too, baby." "Is she coming back?" "Of course she is. She'll be home tomorrow." "Promise?" "I promise. She loves us. She's not leaving." "Mom loved us too. And she left." The words hit him like a physical blow. They'd rarely talked about Maya's mother in direct terms. The abandonment was too fresh, too painful. But apparently the wound was closer to the surface than he'd realized. "Your mom's situation was different. She loved you, but she wasn't ready to be a parent. It wasn't about you being unlovable. It was about her not being equipped for motherhood." "How do you know Serena's different?" "Because Serena chooses us every day. She didn't have to move in. She didn't have to stay when things got complicated. She didn't have to love you the way she does. But she chooses to. That's the difference." Maya was quiet for a long time, processing. Then, "Do you think she'll marry you?" The question caught him off guard. "I don't know. Maybe someday." "Would you want that?" "Yeah, then she'd really be my mom. Not like birth mom, but like real mom. The kind that stays." Adrian held his daughter tighter, feeling the weight of her hope and fear. "She's already real, sweetheart. Paper doesn't make it more true. But it makes it official. Like how you have official papers for this apartment. It means it's really ours." The logic was quintessentially Maya, concrete and practical and achingly vulnerable. And it planted a seed in Adrian's mind that he hadn't quite let himself consider before. Marriage. Official partnership. Not just living together, but building something permanent. Was he ready for that? After Maya finally fell asleep in his arms, Adrian carefully extracted himself and went to his laptop. The letter to Serena was up to 40 pages now, a sprawling document that tracked his emotional journey from the first morning she'd appeared in their lives to this moment, missing her desperately while their daughter slept beside him. He scrolled through it, reading passages at random, and realized what it had become. Not just a letter, a love story. Their love story, told from his perspective, capturing all the small moments that had added up to transformation. The way she'd looked at his renovation work with genuine appreciation, the blanket fort construction, the quiet morning coffees. The moment she'd broken down about needing to be seen instead of displayed. The kiss that had changed everything. He wrote a new section about this trip being her first away, about how the apartment felt incomplete without her, about Maya's fear that love meant inevitable abandonment. He wrote about his own fears, that he wasn't enough, that his small life couldn't sustain her interest forever, that the magic would wear off and she'd realize what she'd given up. But then he wrote about the truth that had been slowly building in his understanding. Serena didn't want magic. She wanted real. And real meant missing each other when they were apart. Real meant Maya's fears and his insecurities and the daily work of choosing each other. Real meant imperfect and complicated and worth it. He wrote until 2 a.m., until his eyes burned and his fingers cramped, until he'd emptied everything he felt onto the page. Then he saved the document and closed his laptop, feeling both exhausted and strangely light. He'd never meant for her to see it. It was too raw, too revealing, too much. But some part of him wondered what would happen if she did. If she could see herself through his eyes. Not as the billionaire who'd walked away from everything, but as the woman who'd walked into everything that mattered. Serena came home the next afternoon while Adrian was out picking up Maya from school. She'd texted that her flight landed early, but he'd told her to rest, that they'd see her at dinner. Instead, she'd come straight to the apartment, exhausted from travel, but desperate to be home. The apartment welcomed her with familiar smells and sounds. She dropped her bag by the door and stood in the living room, letting the feeling of homecoming wash over her. 4 days had felt like months. The meetings had been successful, the deals productive, but all she'd wanted was to be here, in this cramped space with terrible water pressure that had become more home than anywhere she'd ever lived. She made coffee, Adrian's preferred brand, not hers, and settled at the kitchen table with her laptop to catch up on emails. Her eyes fell on Adrian's computer, still open on the couch where he'd left it that morning. The screen had gone dark, but when she moved her bag, she accidentally bumped the mouse. The screen lit up, displaying a document titled simply Serena. She should have looked away, should have closed the laptop and respected his privacy. But her name stared at her, and curiosity won over propriety. She started reading. The first paragraph made her breath catch. By the third page, tears were streaming down her face. By page 10, she was openly sobbing, one hand pressed to her mouth to muffle the sound. He'd written everything, every moment she'd treasured, he'd treasured too. Every fear she'd had about being seen, he'd understood. Every small gesture she'd thought might have gone unnoticed, he'd noticed. He'd cataloged their love story with the same attention to detail he brought to his architecture, finding beauty in the imperfect and meaning in the mundane. She read about how he'd fallen in love with her slowly, then all at once, about how Maya had seen it before he did, about his terror when he discovered who she really was, and the shame he felt about letting that fear make him cruel. She read about the 4 days she'd been gone, about Maya crawling into bed asking if Serena was coming back, about his own desperate missing of her presence. And then she reached the final pages, written just hours ago. I don't know if I'll ever show you this. Part of me wants you to see yourself the way I see you, which is beautiful and real and essential. But part of me is terrified that it's too much, that 40 pages of feelings will scare you off or make you think I'm obsessed or just be overwhelming in all the wrong ways. But here's what I know. You changed my life. Not because you have money or power or connections, though you have all of those things. You changed it because you saw me, because you loved my daughter without reservation, because you made bread and taught fractions and sat on the balcony talking about constellations like they were the most important thing in the world. You changed it because you chose us, not once, but every day, in 1,000 small ways that add up to everything. Maya asked me tonight if I was going to marry you, and I realized I want to. Not right now, we're still figuring this out, still learning how to be partners. But someday, when the time is right, when I'm brave enough to ask and you're ready to answer, I want to build a life with you, not a perfect life. Perfect is boring and fragile, but a real one. The kind with arguments and compromises and hard days. The kind where we choose each other even when it's difficult. The kind that matters. I love you, Serena Vale. I love you for who you are, not who you left behind. I love you for the way you make coffee at dawn and the way you read Maya extra chapters. I love you for staying when I gave you every reason to leave. I love you for making this apartment, this life, Feel full instead of small. I love you. That's the only truth that matters. Everything else is just details. Serena sat at the kitchen table, Adrian's laptop in front of her, tears streaming down her face, and felt like she'd been given the most precious gift anyone had ever offered. Not jewelry or grand gestures or expensive declarations, just truth. Raw, vulnerable, beautiful truth. She heard the door open, heard Maya's excited chatter and Adrian's responding laugh, and quickly wiped her face. But when they came through the door and saw her, both of them lit up in a way that made her heart ache. "Serena!" Maya launched herself across the room, and Serena caught her, holding tight. "Hi, sweetheart. I missed you so much. I missed you more. Daddy and I were terrible at cooking without you. We had cereal for dinner twice." "Twice seems excessive," Serena said, catching Adrian's eye over Maya's head. He was looking at her strangely, taking in the laptop still open on the table, the tears she hadn't quite managed to hide. Understanding dawned on his face, followed quickly by panic. "Maya, go put your backpack away," he said, his voice tight. "But I want to tell Serena about... Now, please." Something in his tone made Maya obey without argument. As soon as she disappeared into her room, Adrian crossed to the table. "Did you..." he started. "I read it," Serena said. "All of it. I didn't mean for you to see that. It was private. It was just me working through..." "Adrian." She stood, taking his face in her hands. "It was beautiful. The most beautiful thing anyone's ever given me. It wasn't supposed to be a gift. It was you, honest and vulnerable and real. It was everything I needed to hear and didn't know I was waiting for." He searched her face, looking for judgment or fear or rejection. Instead, he found her smiling through tears, her expression open and achingly tender. "You wrote 40 pages about loving me," she said. "I did, and I probably should have just told you instead of writing a novel about it. I'm glad you wrote it, because now I have proof. Evidence. A document I can read whenever I doubt or forget or need to remember why this matters. You're not mad that I invaded your privacy? Or that I'm apparently incapable of normal emotional expression? I'm the woman who kept a journal full of drawings of your apartment and observations about your daughter. I think we're matched in the expressing feelings through writing department." He laughed, the sound shaky with relief, and pulled her into his arms. "I love you." "I love you too. And Adrian?" "Yeah?" "Maya asked you about marriage?" He stiffened slightly. "She did, but I'm not proposing. Not yet. I just wanted you to know that I was thinking about forever." "Good, because I'm thinking about it too." They stood in the kitchen, holding each other, and somewhere in the apartment, Maya was almost certainly listening with her ear pressed to the door. But neither of them cared. This moment, this perfect, imperfect, real moment, was exactly where they were supposed to be. That night, after Maya was asleep and they were tangled together in bed, Serena asked him to read parts of the letter aloud to her. He was embarrassed at first, but she insisted, and eventually he opened the laptop and read passages at random. She listened with her head on his chest, occasionally laughing or making soft sounds of recognition. When he reached the part about missing her during her trip, she kissed him quiet. "I missed you too," she said. "Every single moment. I kept catching myself thinking, I need to tell Adrian about this, or Maya would love this. You're both in everything now, in every thought, every plan, every vision of the future." Is that scary? Terrifying and perfect. They made love slowly, carefully, like they had all the time in the world, because suddenly they did. Tomorrow wasn't a threat anymore. It was a promise. Afterward, lying in the darkness, Serena spoke into the quiet. "I want you to know something. When I left my old life, I thought I was running away. But I wasn't. I was running toward this. Toward you. Toward Maya. Toward a life that feels real instead of performed. I just didn't know it yet." "How do you know it now?" "Because being here, with you, is the first time I've ever felt like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Not because it's easy or impressive or what anyone expects, but because it's right. It's home." Adrian pulled her closer, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, feeling the steady beat of her heart against his. "It's home for me too. You're home." They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, The letter saved on the laptop in the other room, a document that would become their foundation, their reminder, their proof that the best things in life were the ones you built slowly, imperfectly, with love. The next 3 months unfolded like a story Adrian had never let himself imagine. The Marcus Foundation project consumed his days with the best kind of creative challenge, transforming the old factory into something that honored its past while building its future. He'd arrive home exhausted and energized, bursting with ideas that Serena would help him refine over dinner while Maya drew her own architectural plans on scrap paper. "The community kitchen should have windows here," Maya declared one evening, pointing to her crayon sketch. "So people can see other people cooking and want to join." "That's brilliant," Adrian said, genuinely impressed. "Transparency creates invitation." "Exactly," Maya agreed, though she probably didn't fully understand the concept. "Serena, does that make sense for restaurants too?" Serena looked up from her laptop, where she was reviewing investment portfolios, and studied Maya's drawing with the same seriousness she brought to billion-dollar deals. "Absolutely. Some of the best restaurants have open kitchens. It builds trust and connection." "See, Daddy? I'm basically a design genius." "Basically," Adrian agreed, catching Serena's amused smile. These moments had become their foundation, the three of them orbiting around the kitchen table, each absorbed in their own work, but together in the way that mattered. Maya had stopped asking if Serena was staying. The question had become obsolete, answered by every morning coffee and every goodnight kiss and every casual "we" that replaced "I" in their daily vocabulary. But underneath the domestic harmony, Adrian felt something building, a certainty, a readiness. The letter he'd written sat in his laptop, read and reread by both of them on nights when they needed the reminder of how far they'd come. But words on a screen weren't enough anymore. He wanted something permanent, something official. He wanted to marry her. The realization didn't come as a dramatic revelation, but as a quiet knowing, like recognizing a truth that had been waiting patiently for him to catch up. He loved her. Maya loved her. She loved them. Everything else was just logistics. The question was when and how. Adrian had never been good at grand gestures. His proposal to Maya's mother had been awkward and practical, more about timing than romance. But Serena deserved something meaningful, something that captured what they'd built together. He started planning in secret, stealing moments when Serena was traveling or Maya was at school. He looked at rings online, overwhelmed by choices, until he remembered something Serena had said months ago about her grandmother's jewelry. Simple pieces with history, nothing flashy or designed to impress. He called his mother, still recovering from her hip surgery but sharp as ever. "You want to marry her?" his mother said, not a question. "I do." After 3 months of officially dating. "We've been building this for longer than 3 months, you know that." His mother was quiet for a moment. "I do know that. I've heard it in your voice every time we talk. You sound alive again, Adrian, like you remember how to want things." "She makes me remember a lot of things. How to trust, how to be vulnerable, how to build something real instead of just safe." "Then marry her. Don't wait for the right time or the perfect moment. Just ask." "I want it to mean something. I want her to know this isn't just about making it official. It's about choosing her every day, forever." "Then show her that. You're an architect, sweetheart. Build something that matters." The conversation planted a seed that grew into a plan, not a grand gesture in a public place with photographers and spectators. Something private, something theirs. Adrian decided on the apartment, the space where everything had started, where Serena had walked in as a stranger and become family. He'd propose here, in the home they'd built together, with Maya as witness to the promise they were making. But first, he needed a ring. He found it at a small estate jewelry shop in East Austin, tucked between a coffee roaster and a vintage bookstore. The owner was a woman in her 70s who listened to his story with the patience of someone who'd heard thousands of love stories and still found each one precious. "I need something simple," Adrian explained. "She's not flashy. She values meaning over display, and she's—" He paused, trying to find words. "She's the kind of person who sees beauty in ordinary things. An exposed brick and clanking radiators and sunrise coffee." The woman smiled and pulled out a tray of estate rings. "Then we want something with history, something that's been loved before and is ready to be loved again." She showed him a platinum band with a single modest diamond, flanked by two smaller sapphires. It was elegant without being ostentatious, vintage without being dated. The kind of ring that would look right on Serena's hand while she made bread or worked on her laptop or held Maya's hand crossing the street. It's from the 1940s, the woman explained. The original owner wore it for 63 years. Her granddaughter sold it to me when she passed, said she'd want it to go to someone who understood what forever meant. Adrian knew immediately. This is it. This is perfect. You're sure? You want to think about it? I'm sure. I've never been more sure of anything. He bought the ring that afternoon and carried it home in his jacket pocket, the small box burning against his chest like a secret. That night, lying next to Serena while she read her poetry collection, he felt the weight of it. Not burden, but potential. The future pressed into a small velvet box. What are you thinking about? Serena asked, closing her book. How lucky I am. That's very sappy for a Tuesday night. Can't help it. You make me sappy. She laughed and kissed him, tasting like the mint tea she'd been drinking. I love you sappy. Good, because it's probably going to get worse. I can live with that. Adrian planned for Saturday. A normal morning, coffee and breakfast, Maya's weekend cartoons, the easy rhythm they'd established. He'd wait until afternoon, when Maya was occupied, and ask Serena to the balcony, their place, where they'd had so many important conversations. But Friday night, everything shifted. Serena came home from a meeting in Dallas looking shaken. Not upset exactly, but unsettled in a way Adrian hadn't seen since the fight about her identity. She kissed Maya hello with her usual warmth, helped with homework, went through the dinner routine, but Adrian could see the tension in her shoulders, the distraction in her eyes. After Maya was in bed, he found Serena on the balcony, staring at the city lights with her arms wrapped around herself. What happened today? He asked, joining her. I got an offer, a big one. His stomach dropped. Tell me. One of my portfolio companies is going public. The IPO is projected to be massive, one of the biggest this year. My shares are worth... She paused, the number clearly staggering. More than I expected, significantly more. That's good news, right? It should be. It is. But it also means visibility I've been avoiding. Press coverage, interviews, the whole circus. My name is going to be everywhere for the next few months. And that means your name. Maya's name. Our life becomes public in ways we can't control. Adrian processed this, understanding clicking into place. You're worried about how it affects us. I'm terrified. Maya's in school with kids who could Google my name and find articles about my net worth. You're working on a public project where people might start asking why the lead architect is dating a billionaire. And her voice cracked. I don't want our life to become a spectacle. I don't want people looking at us and seeing dollar signs instead of a family. He pulled her into his arms, feeling her trembling. Hey, look at me. She lifted her face, eyes bright with unshed tears. We've been through harder things than this, he said. We've been through you leaving, me being an idiot, figuring out how to be a family. We can handle some press coverage. But Maya knows what matters. You've taught her that. We'll talk to her, prepare her, protect her the best we can. But we're not going to hide. We're not going to pretend you're someone you're not just because some people might have opinions. You say that now. But when photographers show up at Maya's school, or when your clients start asking questions about our relationship, or when people on the internet start picking apart our life, then we deal with it. Together. That's what we do now, remember? No more running, no more protecting ourselves into isolation. Serena leaned into him, her face pressed against his chest. I'm so tired of being Serena Vale, the billionaire. I just want to be Serena who makes bread and lives in a cramped apartment. You can be both. You are both. The money doesn't erase the person. It's just part of your story, not the whole thing. I'm scared this will change everything. Then we don't let it. We decide what defines us, not some IPO or press coverage or public perception. We define us. She pulled back to look at him, something shifting in her expression. How are you so calm about this? Because I almost lost you once by letting fear make decisions. I'm not doing that again. Whatever comes, we face it together. That's the deal. That's the deal, she echoed, and some of the tension left her shoulders. They stood on the balcony for a long time, holding each other while Austin hummed below them. Adrian felt the ring box in his pocket, tomorrow's plan now feeling both more urgent and more right. If their life was about to get complicated, if the world was about to intrude on their carefully built privacy, then he wanted this decided first. He wanted her to know, officially and permanently, that he chose her. All of her. The billionaire and the bread maker. The public figure and the private person. He wanted to marry her before the world had opinions about it. That night, lying in bed, Adrian made a decision. He wouldn't wait until Saturday. He'd ask tomorrow morning in the quiet before the chaos, in the space that was most theirs. He barely slept, running through words in his mind, discarding speeches and grand declarations in favor of simple truth. When dawn crept through the windows, he carefully extracted himself from Serena's arms and went to the kitchen. He made coffee the way she'd taught him, precise measurements, proper temperature, attention to detail. He set out 2 mugs and waited for her 5:30 alarm. She emerged at 5:32, sleepy-eyed and beautiful in one of his old t-shirts, her hair a mess from sleep. When she saw him already awake, already holding coffee, she smiled. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep." "Still thinking about the IPO?" "Actually, I was thinking about us." Something in his tone made her pause. "Adrian?" He set down the coffee mugs and took her hands. His heart was hammering, palms sweating, every romantic speech he'd planned evaporating in the face of her steady gaze. "I had a whole plan," he said. "I was going to wait until tomorrow, take you to the balcony, say something poetic about building a life together. But last night, listening to you talk about being scared of the future, I realized I didn't want to wait. I don't want there to be a moment where you doubt what this is or where we're going." "Adrian, what are you—" He pulled out the ring box from his pocket, and her breath caught. "I'm not good at grand gestures," he continued, opening the box to reveal the vintage ring. "And this apartment is cramped, and my career is finally taking off, but it'll never match yours, and I have a 6-year-old daughter who comes with complicated feelings about mothers and abandonment. But I love you, Serena. I love you for who you are, not despite who you are. I love you for choosing us when you could have chosen anything. And I want to spend the rest of my life choosing you back." Tears were streaming down her face now, her hand pressed to her mouth. "I want to build something permanent," Adrian said, "something that weathers IPOs and press coverage and whatever else the world throws at us. I want to marry you, not someday, not when things are perfect or the timing is right. Now, soon as you'll have me." "You're proposing." "I'm proposing, probably badly, but yeah, I'm asking you to marry me, to be my partner officially, to be Maya's mom legally, to build this crazy, complicated, beautiful life together." Serena was crying openly now, no attempt to hide it. "You have terrible timing. I know. I just told you our life is about to get complicated." "I know. And you still want to marry me?" "Especially because of that. I want you to know, before the world has opinions, before things get messy, that I choose you, forever. That's the promise." She looked at him for a long moment, tears still falling, and then she laughed, a sound of pure joy that transformed her entire face. "Yes, yes, yes, I'll marry you. Yes to all of it. The complications and the life we'll build through all of it. Yes." Adrian's hand shook as he slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, like it had been waiting for her. She stared at it, turning her hand in the early morning light, and then she was kissing him, both of them crying and laughing and holding on to each other like lifelines. "I love you," she said against his mouth. "I love you so much it scares me." Good scared or bad scared? The best scared, the kind that means it matters. They stood in the kitchen, wrapped around each other, while the apartment slowly woke around them. When Maya's door creaked open 20 minutes later, they were still standing there, holding each other, the coffee forgotten and cold. "Why are you guys being weird in the kitchen?" Maya asked, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Adrian and Serena pulled apart, both of them grinning like idiots. Adrian crouched down to Maya's level. "We have something to tell you, sweetheart." Maya's eyes went wide, flicking between them. "Did you ask her? Did you finally ask her to marry you?" "Wait, you knew I was planning to propose." "Daddy, everyone knew. You've been acting super weird for like 2 weeks, and you kept looking at rings on your computer when you thought I wasn't watching." She turned to Serena. "Did you say yes?" "I said yes." Maya screamed, an actual scream of pure joy, and launched herself at both of them. They caught her, the three of them collapsing into a tangle of limbs and laughter on the kitchen floor. "This is the best day ever," Maya declared. "Does this mean Serena's really my mom now?" "If you want me to be," Serena said carefully. "I'll never replace your birth mom, but I can be another mom, the kind that stays." "I want that. I want that so much." But they sat on the kitchen floor for a long time, making plans and dreaming out loud. Maya wanted a small wedding. Just us and Grandma, and maybe Mrs. Chen because she's been asking nosy questions about when you guys would get married. Serena wanted simple, no press, no spectacle, just the people who mattered making promises that mattered. Adrian wanted whatever made them happy. Over the next few weeks, as Serena's IPO made headlines and her name appeared in financial publications with renewed intensity, they planned their wedding with deliberate privacy. No announcements, no engagement photos, just the quiet work of building something permanent. The press did eventually find them. A photographer caught them grocery shopping, Serena holding Maya's hand while Adrian pushed the cart, looking like any other family doing weekend errands. The photo ran with speculation about billionaire investors' mystery family. Maya's classmates did ask questions. Some parents looked at them differently. Adrian's clients at the Marcus Foundation raised eyebrows when they connected the dots. But the feared circus never materialized, mostly because Adrian and Serena refused to participate in it. They didn't give interviews, didn't release statements, just lived their lives with the same intentional privacy they'd always maintained. "You're really not going to address the speculation?" Adrian's project manager asked one day on site. "About what? Whether I'm dating Serena Vale? We're engaged, getting married next month, actually, but that's our business, not the public's." "Fair enough. Just so you know, the foundation board thinks it's cool, says it shows you can bring together different worlds." "We're not different worlds. We're just two people building a life." The Marcus Foundation project opened 6 months after they got engaged, transformed from decaying factory into vibrant community space. At the ribbon cutting, Adrian stood next to Serena and Maya, journalists snapping photos while he explained his vision of adaptive reuse, honoring the past while building for the future. "That's what good architecture does," he said. "It doesn't erase history. It builds on it, takes the bones of what was and reimagines it as something new without losing the essential character." Later, Serena would tell him it was the perfect metaphor for their relationship. They'd both brought histories, complicated, imperfect, sometimes broken histories. But instead of erasing them, they'd built on them, used them as foundation for something stronger. They got married on a Sunday morning in the apartment where they'd met, just family and a handful of close friends, Maya serving as flower girl and ring bearer and general coordinator. The ceremony was short and honest, officiated by a judge who'd known Adrian's family for years. Adrian's vows were simple. "I promise to see you, to choose you, to build with you, every day, forever." Serena's vows were equally direct. "I promise to stay, to trust you, to make this home wherever we are, as long as we're together." Maya stood between them during the ceremony, holding both their hands, and when the judge pronounced them married, she declared, "Finally, now we're officially a family." The reception was in their living room, the same living room where they'd built blanket forts and had their first real conversation. Mrs. Chen brought homemade dumplings. Adrian's mother, recovered from her surgery and sharp-eyed with approval, toasted to people brave enough to build something real in a world of performance. Damien sent flowers with a note. "Congratulations on finding what I was too proud to give you, the freedom to be yourself. Be happy." As the sun set and their guests filtered out, Adrian and Serena found themselves on the balcony again. Their place. Maya was inside showing her grandmother the constellation chart Serena had made. "We did it," Serena said, looking at the simple band now next to her engagement ring. "We did. I thought I'd feel different, more changed, but I just feel like more myself than I've ever been. That's how it's supposed to work, I think. The right person doesn't change you, they just make you more you." She leaned into him, and they watched the city lights while music and laughter drifted from inside the apartment. "Do you ever regret it?" Adrian asked. "Walking away from that other life? The galas and the influence and all of it?" "Never. Not once. That life was impressive. This life is real, and real is so much better. Even with cramped apartments and terrible water pressure, especially because of those things. This is ours, Adrian. We built it together. That matters more than any penthouse or title or zero in a bank account. They stood in comfortable silence, the weight of the day settling into something warm and permanent. Inside, Maya's laughter rang out, followed by his mother's delighted response to something. "I should probably go rescue your mom from Maya's constellation lecture," Serena said. "Probably. My daughter is very thorough when explaining the cosmos." "Our daughter," Serena corrected. "She's ours now. Officially." The word sent warmth through Adrian's chest. Our daughter. Our life. Our home. As they turned to go inside, Serena paused. "Adrian, do you remember what you said in that letter about wondering what would have happened if I hadn't read it? That I would have kept leaving doors open until you chose to walk through one. You were right. You did keep leaving doors open. Every morning coffee, every conversation on this balcony, every moment you let yourself be vulnerable. You left doors open everywhere. And you walked through them all." "I did. Every single one. And I'm going to keep walking through them, for as long as you'll let me." "Forever sounds about right." She kissed him as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. When they finally went inside, Maya was demonstrating the proper angle for viewing Orion, using a flashlight and entirely too much enthusiasm. Their life wasn't perfect. The apartment was still cramped. Serena still traveled for work. Adrian still had demanding projects. Maya still had moments of missing the mother who'd left, still carried fears about abandonment that would take years to fully heal. Money was still complicated. Privacy was still a constant negotiation. But it was real. It was theirs. And every morning, when Adrian woke up next to Serena, when Maya climbed into bed between them on weekends, when they shared coffee in the quiet before the world woke up, he knew with absolute certainty that he'd found something worth more than security or safety or any of the protections he'd built around his heart. He'd found home. A year later, they moved to a bigger apartment, not because Serena's money demanded it, but because Maya needed more space and Adrian's home office was bursting at the seams. They found a place 6 blocks away, still in the same neighborhood, with actual water pressure and a radiator that didn't clank. Maya mourned the old apartment for exactly 1 day before discovering the new one had a balcony big enough for a telescope. Serena set up her office in the second bedroom. Adrian claimed a corner for his drafting table. And together, they built a new home that honored the old one. Exposed brick because it mattered, plants clustered by windows because Serena loved them, Maya's artwork framed on walls because her creativity deserved celebration. On their first night in the new apartment, after boxes were unpacked and furniture arranged, they stood on the bigger balcony watching the same Austin skyline from a slightly different angle. "It's weird being here instead of there," Maya observed, wedged between them as always. "Different weird or bad weird?" Adrian asked. "Just weird, but good weird, like we're the same family in a different house." "That's exactly what we are," Serena said. "The house changed. We didn't. Will we move again someday? Maybe. Probably. But wherever we go, we're still us." Maya considered this with her characteristic seriousness, then nodded. "Okay, that's good. As long as we're together, the place doesn't matter as much." "When did you get so wise?" Adrian asked. "I've always been wise. You just keep forgetting." They laughed, the sound carrying into the evening air, and Adrian felt the rightness of it settle into his bones. This was what he'd been protecting himself from for all those years, not the hurt or the loss or the vulnerability. He'd been protecting himself from the terrifying, wonderful possibility that life could be bigger than survival, that wanting could be strength, that opening doors could lead somewhere beautiful. He looked at Serena, her face lit by the sunset, and remembered the morning she'd knocked on his apartment door looking for a room to rent. He'd been so careful then, so controlled, convinced that safety meant small. Now he knew better. Safety wasn't the goal. Connection was. Love was. The courage to build something real with another person, knowing it could break, choosing it anyway. "What are you thinking about?" Serena asked, catching his expression. "Doors." "Doors?" "Yeah. How I almost didn't open the one you knocked on. How scared I was of letting anyone in. How close I came to choosing protection over possibility. But you did open it. That's what matters. I did, and you walked through. Best decision I ever made. Second best, Serena corrected. The best was asking me to stay. Third best, Maya interjected. The first best was having me. The second best was letting Serena move in. The third best was marrying her. We should keep track better. You're absolutely right, Adrian agreed. We should definitely keep better track of our best decisions. As the sun set completely and Austin's lights began to sparkle below them, the three of them stood together on their new balcony in their new home, building their ongoing life one small moment at a time. Inside, boxes still waited to be unpacked. Outside, the world continued its complicated spin. But here, on this balcony, in this moment, everything was exactly as it should be. Three people who'd found each other through a roommate ad and built something that transcended every assumption about what love should look like or what family should be. Three people who'd learned that home wasn't a place, or a size, or a status. It was a choice, made every day, in every small gesture, in every door left open, and every invitation to walk through. And as they finally went inside to finish unpacking, to make dinner in their new kitchen, to tuck Maya into bed in her new room, Adrian felt the truth of what they'd built settle into certainty. The life he'd been protecting was never complete. It had been waiting for the two people brave enough to knock on his door and patient enough to stay while he learned how to let them in. And now that they were here, now that his life was full of morning coffee and constellation lessons and a woman who saw him completely, he couldn't imagine ever choosing protection over this. This messy, complicated, beautiful life they'd chosen together. This home.